Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the physics of impossible things, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight and what time it is for you right now. Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. There is something wonderfully soothing about watching Jake the dog drift into one of his impossible shapes, as if the laws of nature step aside for him with a gentle nod. His stretching has always felt less like a power and more like a quiet conversation between him and the universe, a soft agreement that the boundaries of form are never quite as firm as they appear. Tonight we slip slowly into that mystery, examining Jake's elasticity through the lens of a calm, imaginary physics that belongs only to ooh, a kind of bedtime science where nothing is rushed and everything unfolds with the same lingering grace as a dream. To understand Jake's stretching, one has to imagine that his body exists in a state only partially anchored to the physical world. Most creatures in ooh are held tightly by their biology, tied to muscle and bone, to temperature and tension. But Jake seems to sit in a different relationship with matter itself, as though the atoms that make up his body are loosened, gently unknotted from the usual rules. In this softened state, his mass can ebb and flow like a tide, shifting between dimensions of density, stretching out like warm taffy under a summer sun, and then contracting again as if returning from a peaceful journey. Some believe that his stretching can be traced back to his demonic heritage, but that explanation barely scratches the surface. Even if it were true, it doesn't fully explain why his power feels so calm, so benign, so deeply connected to intention rather than instinct. What seems more fitting is the idea that Jake's entire being is tuned to a hidden current in the universe, a background hum that only a few creatures ever notice. When Jake stretches, he is tapping into that quiet ismic melody, letting its rhythm guide the rearrangement of his form. Instead of bones resisting or muscles straining, there is simply motion, perfectly fluid and perfectly natural. Imagine his body not as a collection of tissues, but as a field, a warm and playful cloud of flexibility. Each cell understands the gesture he wants to make. Each strand of his being is willing to flow with his mood, responding not to force but to feeling. This is what makes his stretching seem so effortless. It is not the physics of pushing and pulling, but the physics of gentle permission. Jake wishes to expand or bend or flatten, and his body simply agrees, like a loyal friend who never questions the request. If we were to peer deeper into the theoretical mechanisms behind this, we might imagine Jake possessing an internal dimension, a pocket of soft, shimmering space that holds everything he needs. Extra length, additional mass, spare volume waiting patiently like folded blankets. When he grows, he is not creating matter from nothing. He's simply opening a small doorway within himself, letting stored potential seep outward. And when he shrinks, the doorway closes and the excess tucks away again, curled up in that private interior like a cat, settling into a warm corner. This internal dimension would not obey the crisp, rigid structure of normal spacetime. Instead, it would behave like a dream space, where shapes shift easily and where intention matters more than geometry. In this interpretation, Jake's physical abilities become a kind of harmony between the waking world and this quiet inner universe. His stretching is the bridge between them, an expression of balance rather than raw power. And yet there is something equally emotional about Jake's elasticity. At its core, it feels tied not just to cosmic structure, but to who Jake is as a person. His laid-back personality, his ease of spirit, his warm heart, all play a role in how freely he moves. A tense, anxious creature could never stretch the way Jake does. His flexibility mirrors his nature, reflecting a truth about him that is far more spiritual than physical. His calmness seems to loosen the knots of reality itself, allowing his form to soften and sway as gently as a breeze rolling across a quiet field at dusk. We might call this phenomenon emotive elasticity, a principle where inner peace becomes the key that unlocks physical possibility. When Jake feels relaxed, his body relaxes with him. When he feels playful, his limbs and torso whirl into shapes that match his mood. Even in moments of fear or urgency, his stretching reacts to the emotional landscape of the scene, shifting from soft and loose to sharp and decisive. His body is not just a vessel, but a reflection, a living canvas painted by his feelings. In this way, Jake teaches us something subtle about the physics of ooh. There is no strict wall between the material and the emotional. Instead, feelings seep into form and intention flows into matter. Jake's stretching becomes a metaphor made literal, a reminder that in this world, the heart and the universe are quietly in conversation. And each time he elongates a paw or expands into an enormous shield, he is participating in that dialogue, speaking in the soft language of flexibility and warmth. And so, as we continue to drift deeper into the calm mystery of Jake's stretching, we might imagine the unseen threads that connect him to the very fabric of ooh. If his body is a cloud of flexible potential, then the world around him is like a soft sponge, gently responding to each extension and contraction. When Jake stretches across a chasm or coils around a friend, the space itself seems to sigh in acquiescence, bending in tiny, imperceptible ways to accommodate his presence. It is as though the universe recognizes his intent and grants it passage, smoothing out obstacles with a gentle, almost parental patience. Let us consider mass and momentum, concepts we often rely on in our waking physics. Normally, a creature extending a limb several times its natural length would find the end impossibly heavy or would snap under the strain. But Jake's world operates under what we might call the principle of gentle expansion. In this quiet law, mass does not resist, it flows. As he stretches, his density can redistribute subtly, pulling from one area to another, allowing him to maintain equilibrium without strain. He is not defying gravity. Rather, gravity becomes part of the negotiation, yielding softly to his will, like water around a drifting leaf. Even more fascinating is the way Jake's stretching interacts with time. Moments of elongation seem to flow differently, slowed in a way that gives him perfect control over his body. He can stretch an arm across a room while the rest of the world continues in its own rhythm, never aware of the temporal patience required for his act. Perhaps his internal dimension has its own time-space elasticity, a miniature universe where seconds are longer, movements are measured, and intention travels unhindered by conventional constraints. Here, the soft passage of time and the pliability of matter are inseparable, creating a gentle, dreamlike harmony. And yet, for all its calm mechanics, there is a poetic elegance to Jake's stretching that cannot be quantified. It is a language, a quiet storytelling, each extension, twist, and coiling curve expressing more than physical utility. When he stretches to reach a distant friend, he is telling a story of connection, of willingness to bridge the gap between beings. When he expands to shield others, he speaks of protection, warmth, and quiet courage. In this, his physics becomes more than mechanics. It is philosophy, a soft meditation expressed through motion, teaching that the impossible is only impossible until approached with care and patience. One might even imagine that Jake's stretching creates subtle ripples in the universe itself. Each extension tugs gently on the strands of ooh's reality, brushing against possibilities, nudging probabilities, whispering to the sleeping currents that shape the world. His power is not destructive. It is almost a quiet choreography, a soft weaving of presence into the cosmos. The calmness of his heart ensures that these ripples are gentle, never violent, always adding to the harmonious flow rather than tearing at it. If we extend our dreamy physics a step further, we might consider the idea that Jake is not merely stretching space around him, but also space within him, his internal dimension. The soft pocket of potential tucked inside every cell is a private world that mirrors the larger universe. As he moves, stretches, and coils, he is exploring this hidden inner cosmos, mapping its contours with the tender curiosity of one who knows every fold is alive and responsive. In this way, Jake is both universe and traveler, elastic soul and cosmic observer, experiencing reality from inside and out, from center to edge, without ever needing to rush. And here, perhaps, lies the most enchanting thought of all. Jake's stretching is not just about motion, not just about reaching or protecting or defending. It is about presence, the gentle acknowledgement that reality is soft when approached with patience, that form can bend when intention is calm, and that love and care are as integral to the universe as gravity or light. His body, in all its whimsical, impossible transformations, becomes a living metaphor for the quiet truth of ooh, that everything bends for those who move with understanding, that even the impossible can unfold slowly, without force, in harmony with the soft, humming laws of this world. And so, sleepyheads, as you imagine Jake curling across the sky, stretching from one end of a forest to another, perhaps even wrapping gently around the moonlit peaks of distant mountains, notice how calm it all feels. There is no rush, no strain, only a gentle, rhythmic unfolding of possibility. In this quiet physics, the universe itself seems to breathe with him, a tender duet of intention and space, of heart and matter. And in that duet, the impossible begins to feel natural, as easy and comforting as the rise and fall of your own breath while you lie beneath your blankets, ready to drift into dreams. We will continue exploring this gentle, elastic mystery of Jake in the next part, tracing how his stretching might ripple into deeper laws of ooze physics, touching not just space and time, but the quiet, emotional currents that bind everything together. And now, as we drift further into the quiet mystery of Jake's elasticity, we might begin to imagine how his stretching is not confined only to physical form, but extends into the very emotional architecture of ooh. In this gentle universe, it is not merely matter that responds to force or intention. Emotions, too, seem to ripple outward, bending perception and subtly reshaping the world around them. When Jake stretches to comfort Finn, his body not only bridges distance, but also transfers warmth, calm, and reassurance into the space itself. His elasticity becomes a medium through which care can travel, a soft extension of empathy made manifest. It is as if each twist, coil, or extension carries a tiny echo of his gentle heart, and the universe bends with him, quietly acknowledging his intent. If we allow our minds to wander a little further into the dreamlike physics of ooh, it seems reasonable to imagine Jake's stretching, governed by an underlying cosmic law of pliancy, a principle that blends matter, emotion, and intention. This law does not impose constraints. Rather, it is a framework of possibilities, an invitation for the universe to cooperate. Here, the density of his form, the length of his limbs, the width of his coils all respond not only to the desires of his mind, but also to the subtle pressures of the emotional field surrounding him. Each act of stretching is a negotiation, a soft agreement between self and world, a whisper between a soul and the quiet, sleeping cosmos. One could even speculate that the longer Jake stretches, the more he is engaging in a kind of localized space-time reconfiguration. His body, when extended, becomes a conduit for potential, a bridge linking points that would otherwise remain separate. In this framework, his elasticity is not a defiance of physical law, but rather a gentle translation of one type of order into another. Mass, momentum, and gravity are all present, yet they bend not in rebellion, but in harmony. Jake does not overpower the universe. He collaborates with it, shaping space and time as a soft, patient conductor shapes the music of an orchestra, never hurried, never harsh, but always precise in its own quiet way. And as we imagine this, consider the subtle role of memory and intention in his stretching. It is not random or uncontrolled. Each stretch carries with it an imprint of previous experiences, a collection of patterns stored in the very fibers of his being. Perhaps every time he reached across a forest to retrieve a lost friend, or curled around Finn in comfort during a quiet night, he left tiny traces in his internal dimension, soft echoes of motion waiting to be called upon again. In this way, Jake's body is both archive and instrument, storing not just physical potential, but the quiet history of care, connection, and calm decision-making. And when he stretches, he is reading from this archive, allowing past gentleness to inform present motion, a meditation expressed through shape and space. There is also a poetic balance at work. Jake's elasticity teaches us about resilience without strain, the quiet power of flexibility. Unlike rigidity, which can snap or resist, his form absorbs and adjusts. Each bend is a compromise, each extension a yielding that allows possibility to flourish. It is a gentle lesson for the world beyond, for those of us tucked into our blankets, eyes heavy, hearts warm. Strength need not be violent. Endurance need not be tense. There is a universe in which the soft path, the yielding path, the path that bends, reaches further than any rigid attempt could ever hope to do. We might then imagine that Jake's stretching is in constant dialogue with itself. Mountains, rivers, and trees do not push back. They sway imperceptibly, accommodating his presence. Even the light of the sun and moon seems to elongate alongside him, brushing him in soft, stretching bands across the landscape. The world, in its own quiet way, participates in his calm experimentation, acknowledging the rhythm of his body and intention. This is not chaos, but a fluid harmony, a form of physics that is less about strict cause and effect, and more about the permeable interplay between existence and will, matter and mind, heart and cosmos. And then there is the stillness within the movement. As Jake stretches, his body flows like water across space, yet his consciousness remains anchored, a quiet center amidst the gentle motion. This center is crucial, for without it, his elasticity might become chaotic, a tangle of improbable shapes. But with that calm heart at the core, every extension and contraction remains coherent, precise, and purposeful. In this sense, Jake becomes a living meditation, a reminder that motion need not disturb the soul. Even in the most fantastical of actions, there is a way to move gently, to affect the world softly, leaving only ripples of care and intention behind. Perhaps most enchanting of all is the thought that Jake's stretching is an act of soft negotiation with reality itself. He does not force, he invites. The universe does not resist, it responds. There is an elegance here, a bedtime wisdom embedded in the impossible. He teaches that even the strangest, most unbelievable phenomena can unfold with patience, with calm, and with attentiveness to the subtle currents of connection and intention. In every elongated arm, in every coiled spiral of his form, There is a quiet assurance that the impossible is only a matter of perspective, and that reality is more pliant, more responsive than we often imagine. As we lie here, eyes growing heavier, let us picture Jake one last time for now, curling across the horizon, in shapes that seem to defy physics, yet flow naturally, comfortably, like a cloud drifting lazily across a moonlit sky. Notice how calm it all feels, how effortless, how soft. Each stretch, each extension, each gentle fold is not just a marvel of impossible form, but a lullaby of understanding, a quiet lesson that even in worlds as strange as harmony can exist, patience is rewarded, and the impossible can become a gentle, almost tender reality. And as we hold that image, drifting slowly into the warmth of this thought, we can allow ourselves to rest in the quiet physics of possibility, waiting to explore, in the next part, how Jake's stretching might ripple beyond his own form, touching the spaces, the dreams, and the unseen currents of itself. And so, sleepyheads, as we continue to lie here in the gentle glow of imagination, we can begin to sense that Jake's stretching is not merely a physical marvel, but a bridge between the self and the universe. Each extension, each coiling, each seemingly impossible transformation carries with it more than length or width. It carries the essence of intention, the quiet heartbeat of a being attuned to the soft rhythms of There is a reason it feels so comforting to watch him stretch. It is a reminder that flexibility is not weakness, that patience has its own kind of power, and that the cosmos itself bends ever so slightly for those who move with understanding and care. Let us imagine the internal mechanics of his body a little more closely, but not with harsh, clinical thought. Instead, imagine them as a gentle lattice of potential, a soft network where every fiber, every strand, every cell is capable of mild transformation. They do not resist. They simply yield. They contain their own miniature spacetime, a personal pocket universe that is malleable yet ordered. When Jake reaches for something just out of reach, he is not straining against matter. Instead, he is inviting the universe to cooperate, quietly rearranging the possible to make space for his intention. In this, his elasticity becomes a philosophy, a soft teaching that reality is responsive when approached with care, patience, and a willingness to bend without breaking. Consider, too, the effect of Jake's stretching on those around him. When he coils around Finn in a protective embrace, or stretches to carry a friend across a river, the world seems to shift in subtle ways. The air softens around him. The light seems warmer, and even the ground beneath responds in imperceptible nods to his calm. His power is not destructive or chaotic. It is reassuring, harmonizing, a quiet tide that lulls the surrounding world into gentle compliance. There is a physics here that is more emotional than numerical, a science of the heart that echoes the rhythms of intention, empathy, and care. And then, of course, there is the matter of scale. Jake's body can stretch to incredible lengths, yet never loses coherence. How is this possible? Perhaps it is because his internal dimension, the secret, soft universe within him, grows proportionally, a quietly expanding lattice of potential, always ready to accommodate the next gentle whim of movement. This inner universe mirrors the outer one, a reflection in miniature of the grand possibilities of itself. In stretching, he explores not just space, but possibility, moving through dimensions of potential in a way that is both literal and symbolic, practical and profoundly philosophical. Even more intriguing is the interplay between Jake's stretching and time. While his limbs may extend across distances that would challenge any ordinary dog, they do so with a calm, temporal fluidity. Moments seem to elongate around him, creating a soft bubble in which he can maneuver freely, unfettered by the strict sequencing of events that governs most beings. It is as if his personal dimension is tuned not only to space but to time, allowing him to navigate both with serene precision. This is a physics not taught in classrooms, not measured in equations, but experienced in quiet observation, in the lingering pause before a paw reaches a friend, in the gentle uncoiling of a protective spiral. And let us not forget the emotional resonance that underpins all of this. Jake's calm, easygoing nature is not just character. It is an integral part of the mechanics of his form. A tense, anxious Jake might find himself snapping or twisting awkwardly, but the real Jake moves with ease, stretching and bending as though the universe itself has chosen to yield. His body, his mind, his heart, all flow together in a quiet symphony, a soft demonstration that internal peace and external possibility are intimately linked. His calm intention stabilizes his form, allowing him to navigate impossibility without strain. Perhaps the most magical aspect of all is the ripple effect. Every stretch sends faint waves through the universe of ooh, nudging probabilities, brushing against the dreams and intentions of others, and whispering possibilities into the hidden currents of existence. Even the tiniest coil or extension has a subtle impact, like a stone dropped into a still pond. The pond does not resist. It carries the ripple outward, gentle and inevitable. In this way, Jake is not merely a participant in ooh's world. He is a quiet architect of its potential, shaping reality not through force, but through soft, deliberate, and loving presence. As we imagine Jake now, perhaps curling across a forest canopy or stretching across the moonlit hills, notice how naturally all of this feels. There is no tension, no hurried motion. His body flows with the rhythm of intention, harmonizing with the unseen currents of space, time, and emotion. Each transformation, each extension, is a lullaby to the universe itself, a quiet meditation on the beauty of yielding, the elegance of patience, and the calm power of presence. And so, as our minds trace the final curves and coils of Jake's elastic form, we arrive at a gentle understanding. His stretching is more than a physical ability. It is a window into the soft, poetic physics of ooh. It is an interplay of matter, mind, and heart, a tender reminder that reality bends for those who move with care, that the impossible can unfold slowly, without strain, and that even in a world filled with chaos and wonder, there exists a quiet, harmonious space where intention, love, and patience can shape existence itself. And with that thought tucked gently into our minds, we can begin to drift, knowing that Jake's calm, elastic soul is always stretching across the universe, carrying warmth, connection, and quiet possibility wherever it flows. In the next segment, we will explore how emotions themselves bend space-time in ooh, weaving through the lands and hearts of its inhabitants with a quiet, invisible hand. But for now, let us rest in the soft, pliant wonder of Jake's gentle physics, letting our own bodies and minds stretch quietly into the comfort of this bedtime world. There is a quiet wonder in ooh that often goes unnoticed at first glance. The rolling hills, sparkling rivers, and endless skies feel natural, serene, even whimsical. But beneath this gentle exterior lies a subtle, invisible dance. It is a dance shaped not only by physical matter, but by the soft, persistent pull of emotion. In this world, feelings have weight. They curve space, ripple through time, and leave gentle imprints on the landscapes they touch. Tonight we settle into this idea, imagining ooh as a place where hearts and minds influence reality in ways that feel both intimate and cosmic. Emotions in ooh behave much like a form of gravity, though far softer than anything we encounter in the waking world. When a character experiences intense joy, sorrow, or fear, the surrounding environment responds quietly, molding itself to the emotional field. The lich, for instance, radiates despair so profound that it warps the air and shadows, tugging at the edges of perception itself. Mountains seem sharper, winds colder, and even the stars appear dimmed under the pull of such darkness. Conversely, Princess Bubblegum's thoughtful rationality and care ripple through her domain, stabilizing not only the Candy Kingdom's physical structures, but the emotional well-being of its inhabitants. In her presence, the environment becomes a soft lattice of order, geometric yet warm, a physical manifestation of deliberate kindness. We might imagine that every heart, every thought, every quiet sigh contributes to an emotional metric tensor, a gentle field that quietly measures the influence of feeling on reality. These fields overlap, intertwine, and interact like unseen rivers beneath the land, constantly adjusting the curvature of ooh in response to the inner lives of its denizens. A sudden outpouring of anger might tilt a forest path or tense the branches of a tree, while laughter can cause a small clearing to bloom brighter, the grass leaning toward the warmth. The universe of ooh, in this sense, is alive in an unusual way. It is sensitive, responsive, and intimately linked to the inner rhythms of those who dwell within it. Think for a moment of Finn's heart during an adventure. When he confronts fear, his courage stretches outward, tugging at reality in subtle ways. The air feels heavier, the ground firmer beneath his steps, and his friends sense the pull of his determination, even before they see it. In moments of joy or connection, the curvature of space-time itself seems to ease, creating a gentle harmony between action and environment. Ooh's physics is not indifferent. It is responsive, a quiet partner in the emotional lives of its inhabitants, allowing feelings to ripple outward and reshape the very landscape in delicate, almost imperceptible ways. This idea of emotional gravity field suggests that ooh is a universe governed as much by intention as by conventional laws. When a character feels strongly enough, reality itself bends, not violently, but like soft clay being molded by a careful hand. Anger, love, grief, hope, and curiosity each carry their own gravitational signature, creating localized distortions that influence both space and events. These emotional distortions are rarely permanent. They fade and settle with time, like waves on a pond gradually smoothing back into stillness. Yet their temporary presence leaves a memory, an echo that can shape decisions, perceptions, and the flow of narrative in subtle, profound ways. Consider Marceline's music, each note a vibration carrying complex emotion. Her songs do more than entertain. They send ripples through the air, soft undulations that alter the emotional curvature of space. Trees sway in quiet resonance, shadows dance in harmony, and even the weather seems to sigh with her melodies. When feelings are expressed, particularly by beings with profound sensitivity or power, ooh's reality responds. It is as though each thought, each mood, each quiet heartbeat nudges the world into new alignments, subtly curving the paths of rivers, the sway of branches, and the alignment of clouds. In moments of extreme emotional intensity, these fields can stretch further than one might imagine. The cosmic owl, appearing in dreams, seems to navigate not only the minds of sleepers, but also the emotional currents that ripple outward, connecting possibilities and outcomes across the multiverse of ooh. Here, feelings act almost as navigational instruments, softly curving probabilities, opening doors that might otherwise remain closed, and drawing together threads of cause and effect that exist more in the realm of intent than in hard physics. Even in small, everyday moments, emotional gravity fields shape the world. A gentle apology from a friend may ease a tension in the air, softening not only a conflict, but subtly altering the physical space around it. A burst of laughter shared in a quiet glade can shift sunlight through leaves in warmer patterns, making the world feel safer, more alive. These effects are never rigid or predictable, but they are constant, an ever-present undercurrent that links hearts to landscape, minds to matter, and emotion to the very geometry of existence. Sleepyheads. Imagine now a scene where Finn and Jake pause at the edge of a forest. Finn's excitement and Jake's calm anticipation mingle, forming a delicate curvature of emotional space. The trees lean slightly toward them, leaves whispering encouragement in the wind. Even the moss underfoot seems softer, yielding to their passage. They do not command the world, and yet the world bends with them, an invisible partner in the quiet rhythm of their hearts. Ooh, in these moments, feels less like a collection of objects and more like a living, breathing organism shaped by feeling, a universe quietly cradling those who inhabit it. And within this delicate interplay lies a profound thought, that the physics of ooh is not governed solely by numbers, weights, or velocities. It is equally guided by the gentle pull of empathy, the quiet tug of hope, and the invisible curvature of love. Emotions are forces, subtle yet profound, shaping reality not in sharp, jarring ways, but in soft, flowing motions that harmonize with the rhythms of life itself. To live in ooh is to move within these fields, to navigate a world where the heart leaves marks on space, where feelings create paths, and where the invisible geometry of emotion is just as tangible as mountains or rivers. As we drift further into this exploration, we can begin to imagine not only how these emotional gravity fields affect the land, but how they ripple through time, weaving possibilities, opening doors, and guiding the lives of those who inhabit this softly bending universe. In the next part, we will explore deeper into how these feelings interact with dreams, intentions, and the subtle currents of ooh's reality, creating a gentle network of influence that connects heart, mind, and world. As we continue to drift gently through the subtle currents of ooh, let us imagine how emotional gravity fields interact not only with the land but with each other, creating a delicate lattice of influence that quietly shapes every moment. When Finn faces a challenge, his courage radiates outward, overlapping with Jake's calm resolve. The two forces intermingle, a soft blending of emotional fields that not only guides their actions, but gently adjusts the spaces around them. The forest path may narrow or widen in response. The breeze may carry reassurance through the leaves, and even the tiniest creatures feel the quiet pull of these combined currents. In this universe, no emotion exists in isolation. Each feeling is a note in a broader symphony, harmonizing with the others to produce the soft, flowing melody of reality. Consider the way fear behaves in ooh. Unlike the rigid laws of physics we are used to, fear does not simply create danger. It curves space in anticipation, opening cracks for uncertainty to seep through. A shadow may stretch longer, a hill may rise steeper. A gust of wind may press more insistently against the skin. But within these distortions lies an opportunity. The careful application of empathy or courage can reshape the curvature, softening the edges of tension and allowing space for hope to bloom. Here, the physics of emotion becomes a dialogue, a gentle negotiation between inner state and outer world, each influencing the other in a continuous, quiet dance. Joy, on the other hand, expands like a soft, gravitational pulse, gently pushing against constraints and creating pockets of possibility. When BMO laughs at a game, that laughter radiates outward, nudging nearby objects, beings, and even probabilities toward states of gentle openness. Time itself seems to bend slightly in these moments, allowing interactions to unfold more fluidly, choices to expand, and connections to deepen. Happiness is not just an internal state. It is a force that reshapes the contours of ooh, reminding us that feelings carry tangible weight in a universe that listens to the heart. Love and compassion in ooh operate on a subtler plane, curving reality in ways that are barely perceptible, but profoundly important. When Princess Bubblegum tends to her subjects with care, her intentions weave through the candy kingdom, subtly adjusting probabilities to favor safety, cooperation, and well-being. The kindness of one being can ripple across space, merging with the intentions of others to create a stabilizing field that ensures the delicate ecosystems of ooh remain balanced. This is a physics that transcends calculation, a law of gentle influence that rewards attention, patience, and heartfelt action. Anger and grief, while more turbulent, still adhere to this soft framework. The Lich's presence, heavy with despair and malice, bends reality sharply, tugging at shadows, warping air, and pressing unease into the minds of all nearby. Yet even this is not arbitrary. Emotional gravity fields respond to intention as much as to raw feeling. Acts of courage, acts of understanding, or even small gestures of kindness can counterbalance these distortions, reshaping the curvature of space and subtly easing the tension in hearts and land alike. In ooh, even the darkest emotions can be tempered, guided, and transformed by the responsive weave of feeling and will. The interaction of multiple fields can create fascinating patterns, almost like the interlacing of invisible threads across the land. A combination of hope, fear, joy, and caution can generate areas of soft tension where possibilities seem to hover, suspended between choices, waiting for a gentle nudge to determine their unfolding. These zones of emotional resonance act as invisible maps, guiding adventurers, shaping stories, and influencing outcomes without ever announcing themselves. Ooh is alive with these quiet interactions, a universe humming with the soft music of feeling. Even mundane emotions, curiosity, hesitation, quiet delight, add layers to this dynamic. When Finn wanders through a forest, his wonder nudges the trees, the flowers, the stream, all bending slightly toward exploration. When Jake yawns or stretches in contentment, his calm radiates outward, smoothing the spaces he moves through, making room for gentle expansion of action and thought. The world is not fixed. It responds, molds, and accommodates the interior lives of its inhabitants, honoring the subtle pull of heart and mind. In these ways, emotional gravity fields shape ooh not through force or violence, but through resonance, interaction, and gentle persuasion. Each being contributes, consciously or unconsciously, to the curvature of reality, creating a softly shifting landscape where emotions leave traces in space, time, and possibility. In the next part, we will explore how these feelings ripple further still, influencing dreams and the very texture of reality itself, blending the subtle physics of the heart with the quiet mechanics of imagination. And as we continue to lie here, letting the calm of ooh wash over us, we can begin to see that emotional gravity fields do more than simply shape space. They weave threads between beings, linking hearts across distance and time. When Finn's bravery overlaps with Princess Bubblegum's careful calculation, or when Marceline's melancholy meets the light-hearted laughter of a friend, the fields intertwine, forming a gentle network of influence. This network is not visible, yet it is tangible. like the soft hum of wind through leaves or the lingering warmth of a sunbeam across the ground. Each emotional interaction creates a subtle curvature in reality, bending not only the immediate environment, but also the potential for future moments. In these fields, the universe of ooh feels alive, not as a rigid collection of objects, but as a responsive organism attuned to the interior states of its inhabitants. The pull of love can lift a weary heart, and the weight of fear can anchor it, slowing the flow of events just enough to allow reflection or courage to emerge. Happiness can stretch time slightly, allowing moments to linger, while grief might tighten the flow of experience, focusing attention on what matters most. Emotions are not incidental. They are forces as real and influential as wind or water, shaping the soft physics of a world that listens attentively to the souls dwelling within it. Even the environment itself seems to carry memories of these emotional interactions. A grove that has seen countless acts of kindness may feel warmer, more welcoming, as though the soil remembers the gentle intentions and adjusts its subtle resonance accordingly. A mountain that has been witness to sorrow may hold a quiet heaviness, shadows lingering longer, wind speaking in hushed tones. Ooh's emotional topography is layered, soft yet profound, and it responds over time, accumulating traces of feeling that shape future possibilities. This subtle, pervasive influence becomes especially clear when we consider the dreams and imaginations of ooh's inhabitants. Emotional gravity fields do not exist solely in the waking world. They ripple through sleep, memory, and possibility, affecting not just matter but potential. Finn's hopes for adventure, Jake's quiet contentment, or even the anxious anticipation of a newcomer, all send soft waves outward, curving the flow of events before they fully unfold. In this sense, emotion precedes action, shaping reality from the inside out, guiding probability with a gentle, invisible hand. We might also imagine that these fields are interactive, forming gradients where multiple emotions converge. A moment of shared excitement between Finn and Jake creates a stronger curvature than either could produce alone, like two stones dropped close together creating overlapping ripples on a pond. Conversely, a clash of emotions, frustration against patience, anger against calm, creates zones of tension where reality feels slightly unsettled, paths uncertain, and outcomes undetermined until the energies reconcile. The landscape of ooh is thus constantly in flux, a soft choreography dictated not only by geography but by the inner lives of those who inhabit it. Even ordinary creatures contribute to these fields. A quiet mouse nibbling on a patch of grass, a bird chirping in the morning light, or a snail gliding across a stone sends micro ripples outward, each subtle curvature reinforcing or countering the currents of larger, more intense emotional flows. Every heartbeat, every sigh, every whispered thought has the potential to leave a mark, however faint, on the invisible geometry of ooh. The world is porous, sensitive, and alive in a way that feels both magical and deeply natural, as though it breathes in rhythm with the hearts of its beings. And yet these emotional fields are not chaotic. They follow a subtle, almost poetic logic. Joy tends to expand gently. Hope pulls outward with soft insistence. Grief presses downward without breaking, and love radiates in all directions. The universe accommodates these flows, bending space and smoothing time in response to the invisible pressures of feeling. It is a quiet physics, one that requires no equations, no instruments, no formulas. Only awareness, empathy, and attentiveness to the soft pull of hearts, both near and far. Imagine a scene at dusk. Finn, tired from a day of adventure, sits beside Jake at the edge of a quiet pond. Their laughter mingles with the soft sighing of the wind. The emotional fields emanating from them curve the world in subtle ways. The water reflects their joy with warmer ripples. The reeds lean slightly toward them, and even the moonlight seems to gather in a softer glow. The landscape itself becomes an echo of feeling, responding gently to the inner currents of the heart. And as they sit together, a quiet truth becomes apparent. In U, emotions are not just experienced. They are felt by reality itself, shaping every hill, every stream, every leaf with their invisible presence. Even moments of quiet contemplation, of solitude and reflection, create these gravitational effects. The universe listens, even when no one else does. A whispered hope, a sigh of contentment, or the gentle pull of longing can curve reality in small but significant ways, leaving traces that accumulate over time. This is the beauty of U's emotional physics. It rewards awareness, nurtures care, and allows even the softest of feelings to participate in the ongoing shaping of the world. As we settle into this calm, sleepy understanding, we begin to sense that the emotional gravity fields are more than background phenomena. They are the very threads that bind U together, connecting beings, landscapes, and possibilities in a web of gentle influence. They are subtle, responsive, and profoundly tender, offering a physics of the heart that complements the physics of matter. And in the next part, we will explore how these fields ripple further still, interacting with dreams and imagination, curving reality in ways that are even more quiet, profound, and beautiful. And now, sleepyheads, as we continue to float along the gentle currents of U's emotional gravity, let us imagine the quiet ways in which these forces shape not only space, but the very flow of time and possibility. In U, emotion is not passive. It participates, nudging events along soft, curving trajectories. A character's joy may accelerate the unfolding of happy coincidences, while grief or fear can slow the world, creating pauses that allow reflection, growth, or subtle shifts in circumstance. The world itself seems to breathe in rhythm with the emotional tides, expanding and contracting, curving and bending, as if it were a living organism composed of both matter and feeling. Consider Finn in moments of deep concern for his friends. His worry is not merely a personal state. It is a small field radiating outward, bending the air, weighing on the trees, pressing lightly on the water. Even the tiniest ripple from his heart has consequences, shaping events without any conscious intent. It is a physics that is soft, invisible, yet inexorably present. Every choice he makes is filtered through these curvatures, every act of bravery or hesitation guided subtly by the invisible geometry of emotion. Jake, attuned to his own calm yet deeply responsive to Finn, complements this field, creating a dynamic interplay where emotional currents interact, intertwine, and coalesce into shapes that reality itself must accommodate. These interactions are rarely straightforward. When multiple beings are present, their emotional fields merge in a complex yet graceful weave. Joy and fear, hope and doubt, courage and uncertainty all flow together, overlapping like gentle waves in a still pond. The result is a constantly shifting topography, where pathways curve unexpectedly, distances feel shorter or longer, and opportunities arise or recede depending on the subtle balance of feeling. In such a world, navigation is not simply about moving through space. It is about harmonizing with the emotional resonance that permeates everything, listening carefully to the quiet tug of hearts and minds. And there are places in O where these fields accumulate, soft pockets where emotion leaves a lingering impression. A clearing that has seen generations of laughter may retain a warmth that encourages calm and contentment. A hill scarred by sorrow may carry a subtle heaviness, slowing footsteps, bending the air, reminding wanderers of the echoes of feeling that shaped it. These areas are quiet memorials, living records of the emotional interactions that have passed through them. They do not resist or demand attention. They simply exist. And those who pass through them feel the pull, even if only faintly, as if reality itself remembers. It is here, in these accumulations, that dreams and intention meet emotional fields. Finn's hope for adventure, Jake's calm optimism, Marceline's longing, or even BMO's innocent delight, send ripples outward, shaping the possibilities that unfold. Emotional gravity is not limited to the present. It curves potential itself, influencing outcomes that have not yet been realized. Each heartfelt thought nudges probability, shaping the quiet mechanics of possibility, and leaving behind traces that may bloom into subtle synchronicities. Ooh is alive with this invisible network, a universe that listens attentively to the cadence of feeling, shaping the flow of life through a tender, unseen hand. The interplay between stronger and weaker fields adds another layer of wonder. In moments of great fear or sorrow, the curvature becomes more pronounced, tension accumulating like slow, soft pressure across the landscape. Joy, hope, and love can counterbalance these forces, smoothing out the bends and restoring harmony. Even the smallest acts, a gentle word, a soft touch, a shared smile, can realign the emotional geometry, easing tension, and allowing possibilities to unfold once more. This is the quiet power of ooh, where the physics of emotion is at once delicate and profound, guiding the world in ways both subtle and meaningful. We can also see how these fields serve as invisible threads connecting beings across distances. A friend in trouble sends out a ripple of worry or care felt by another miles away. A shared memory radiates warmth across space, nudging decisions, softening paths, and encouraging gentle interactions. Emotional gravity is relational. It is shaped by bonds, strengthened by connection, and reinforced through repeated care. The bonds themselves curve reality, ensuring that those who are attuned to one another find pathways that support growth, understanding, and collaboration. Even the act of observation is part of this physics. Simply noticing a being in distress or delight can create a small curvature, a subtle shift in probability that allows gentle interventions to occur. Emotional gravity is sensitive not only to internal state, but to attention and awareness. It is a physics of presence, of quiet mindfulness, a reminder that even when we think our influence is small, it reaches farther than we might imagine, shaping the subtle geometry of the world. And as we drift further into the calm understanding of these emotional currents, we begin to realize that ooh is a universe composed not only of matter and magic, but of feeling itself. Mountains, rivers, and forests bend, skies shift, time flows differently, all in response to the invisible, gentle tug of hearts. The land remembers, the air listens, and the universe curves patiently for those who inhabit it. Emotional gravity is soft but persistent, a quiet framework that ensures the world responds to care, courage, and love, guiding existence in gentle, harmonious ways. Sleepyheads, imagine now a quiet night in ooh. Finn lies beside Jake under the stars. Marceline hums softly in the distance, her voice sending tender ripples across the forest. Princess Bubblegum tends her experiments with meticulous care, her calm shaping the candy kingdom in subtle waves. Even the wind, the streams, the rustling leaves, all move in response to these invisible fields, curving around the emotions that flow so naturally from heart to heart. This is ooh, alive not only in matter but in feeling, a universe that bends, sighs, and listens. And as we hold that vision, drifting with it into the soft folds of awareness, we prepare to journey further. In the next part, we will explore how these emotional fields ripple into the domain of dreams, weaving with imagination and intention to bend reality in ways even more profound and tender. For now, let us rest in the gentle curvature of feeling, sensing the invisible gravity that surrounds us, and allowing ooh itself to cradle us in its quiet, responsive embrace. As we drift gently from the soft curves of emotion into a quieter, subtler domain, we enter the world of dreams. In ooh, sleep is not merely rest. It is a space where reality itself becomes malleable, a canvas for the imagination, and a stage upon which the sleeping mind can nudge, bend, and sometimes rewrite the very fabric of existence. Tonight we settle into that calm mystery, exploring how the minds of those who sleep, whether human, magical, or otherwise, interact with the subtle laws of ooh, creating shifts both minute and profound. Dreams in ooh behave less like fleeting illusions and more like parallel streams of influence. When Finn closes his eyes after a long day of adventure, his mind does not simply pause. It extends outward into the world, threading soft currents of possibility across the landscapes he inhabits. These are not violent or abrupt alterations, but quiet suggestions to reality, gentle nudges that ripple into the waking universe. A sleeping thought of hope might ease the flow of a river, soften the angles of a cliff, or encourage a timid creature to venture further than it would awake. Dreams are like a soft wind passing through the branches of ooh, bending the world imperceptibly yet persistently. Consider the cosmic owl, who drifts through the dreams of sleepers like a guardian of possibility. The owl does not enforce strict rules, but navigates the emotional and imaginative currents of ooh's dreaming minds, carrying messages, weaving prophecies, and nudging the architecture of reality toward paths aligned with intention. Dreams, in this sense, become a quiet interface between conscious will, emotional gravity, and the latent potential of the world. A single vision, a whispered fear, or an imagined victory in sleep can create waves that ripple outward, subtly adjusting probability and shaping future moments without ever announcing themselves to the waking eye. In this framework, sleeping minds act as soft architects of existence, using imagination as both tool and material. Marceline, while dozing in a moonlit grove, may dream melodies that bend shadows, coaxing ancient trees into gentle sways, or shifting moonlight to highlight hidden paths. Even BMO's playful dreams can ripple outward, affecting the alignment of small objects, sending currents of chance that guide events in delightful, quiet ways. Each dream, whether profound or trivial, participates in a larger tapestry of reality, contributing gentle curves and soft folds to the space around it. It is important to note that these dream effects are inherently linked to emotional resonance. A dream filled with fear may warp the surrounding probabilities, tightening paths, emphasizing danger, and heightening tension. A dream of hope or love expands possibility, smoothing obstacles, illuminating potential, and guiding fortunate coincidences. The curvature of reality in ooh, therefore, is never independent of the mind's emotional state. Dreams amplify the gravity of feeling, translating the unseen pull of hearts and minds into subtle adjustments of matter, space, and time. Even when a dream seems entirely fantastical, untethered from waking logic, its influence is tangible. Jake stretching through a surreal, impossibly long corridor in a dream might inspire his limbs to move in ways that subtly prefigure waking abilities. Finn imagining an enormous leap across a canyon may create a soft alignment in the physical world, where timing, momentum, and probability bend just enough to make the action feasible. Dreams act as rehearsal spaces for reality, allowing the mind to test possibilities, explore outcomes, and trace the soft curves of action before they are enacted. We can also imagine a network of interconnected dreams, a subtle lattice where multiple sleeping minds influence one another, even at a distance. Finn's hope may resonate with Jake's calm. BMO's delight may echo with Marceline's melancholy. And Princess Bubblegum's meticulous concerns may harmonize with the citizen's quiet trust. The result is a constantly shifting, overlapping fabric of possibility, where sleeping thoughts merge, amplify, and sometimes counterbalance each other, creating a web of potential that stretches across ooh. In this web, even the smallest dream carries weight, nudging the waking world in delicate but significant ways. Dream mechanics in ooh are also tied to temporal flexibility. In sleep, time is softer, more malleable. Events can be rehearsed. Probabilities can be explored, and the consequences of actions can ripple backward and forward in ways that feel natural within the dreaming mind. A single, well-placed vision of the future may guide choices before they are consciously made, allowing the dreamer to align intention with outcome. In this way, sleeping minds act as calm navigators of potential, gently steering the course of reality without force or urgency. Even dreams without overt intention leave their mark. When a creature sleeps, the emotional and imaginative energy emitted during slumber softly curves the space around it, adjusting probabilities in subtle ways. A squirrel dreaming of safe paths through the forest may slightly influence the migration of leaves, the fall of acorns, or the movement of other animals. A cloud of sleeping emotions, fear, contentment, curiosity, or restlessness, creates a gradient of influence, layering minor adjustments atop one another until the environment itself hums with the quiet resonance of ooh's dreaming minds. And so, sleepyheads, as we picture Finn drifting into slumber under a soft canopy of stars and Jake curling beside him, we can sense a new physics unfolding. Dreams are not merely stories told by the mind. They are active agents, soft weavers of possibility, tender curvers of space, and gentle modulators of time. Ooh is alive with these currents, a universe shaped not only by matter and emotion, but by the imaginative reach of those who sleep. Every sigh, every flicker of thought, every quiet pulse of desire contributes to the invisible architecture of the world, quietly rewriting reality in harmony with the inner life of its inhabitants. And as we hold this vision, drifting with it into the warmth of imagination, we begin to see that dreams are not isolated. They intertwine with emotional gravity fields, with the elasticity of beings like Jake, and with the magical undercurrents that pulse beneath ooh's surface. In the next part, we will explore the interplay of dreams and magic, examining how sleeping minds not only influence reality, but interact with the unseen forces of the universe, shaping possibility and potential in ways both profound and tender. As we continue to drift gently through the quiet mechanics of dreams in Ur, let us imagine how deeply they intertwine with both the emotional and magical currents of the land. Dreams are not isolated events occurring only within the boundaries of one mind. They are waves that propagate outward, bending the edges of probability, nudging small events, and softly guiding outcomes in ways that feel almost imperceptible. A single dream can ripple through the network of emotional gravity fields, amplifying courage here, softening fear there, and subtly shaping the flow of life across the land. The act of sleeping becomes an intimate dialogue with reality itself, a way for minds to converse with the universe without words or deliberate action. Consider Jake dreaming of stretching impossibly far across a valley to reach Finn. In his sleep, the possibilities for extension are explored freely, unconstrained by the immediate physics of waking life. And yet these explorations have an echo. The elastic principles tested in his mind seem to leave traces in his body, strengthening pathways and subtly aligning the materials of his form to respond more fluidly in the waking world. Finn, meanwhile, dreaming of an adventure in a forest, may unconsciously adjust his own emotional gravity field within the dream, smoothing potential hazards and highlighting paths of opportunity. Dreams in U are experimental laboratories, soft rehearsals where intention, emotion, and possibility meet, shaping not only perception, but actual outcomes. These dream waves are inherently interactive. When multiple beings sleep near each other, their unconscious imaginings mingle, overlap, and sometimes harmonize. A dream filled with hope may intersect with one of fear, creating zones of tension where the unfolding of events teeters between possibilities. Similarly, joyful dreams may resonate together, amplifying each other's influence, creating clusters of probability that make fortunate outcomes slightly more likely. In U, sleeping minds are never entirely separate. They exist within a lattice of subtle influence, contributing to a quiet, collective shaping of reality. Even those asleep in distant corners of the land can interact through these currents, their dreams merging in ways that defy linear space and rigid causality. Magic, too, responds to dreams. In U, magic is not entirely deterministic. It is a living, responsive force, attuned to intention and perception. When a sleeping mind imagines a fantastical solution to a problem or envisions a subtle shift in the environment, the magical currents around it align softly, reinforcing the dream's influence. A spell imagined in sleep may leave residual possibilities in the waking world, a faint echo of intention that can manifest when conditions are aligned. The interplay of dream and magic creates a soft causality where imagination reaches out, nudging reality toward outcomes that are shaped as much by thought and feeling as by action. The landscape itself becomes a participant in dreams. A meadow that has absorbed years of peaceful slumber may be more receptive to the gentle nudges of imagination, curving subtly toward joy or creative insight. A river that has flowed beside dreaming minds may carry the echoes of intentions downstream, altering the subtle dynamics of ecosystems or influencing the paths of travelers. Even the very air seems to thrum softly with accumulated possibility, a quiet resonance that reminds sleepers that their minds are active agents in shaping the world around them. Dream mechanics and O also interact with time in ways that feel tenderly elastic. In sleep, past experiences, present intentions, and imagined futures may all converge, overlapping in a soft, malleable field of potential. A choice that seems impossible upon waking may have been tested, rehearsed, and refined in the gentle curvature of dreams. Moments of failure or fear can be transformed into learning, anticipation can be aligned with action, and improbable solutions can bloom within the subconscious before manifesting in the waking world. Dreams become a kind of slow, gentle workshop where reality is not rewritten forcefully, but coaxed, suggested, and shaped with care. Even seemingly minor thoughts in sleep carry weight. A small hope, a fleeting curiosity, a tender longing can ripple outward, brushing against probability and nudging reality. The act of dreaming is never trivial. It is a form of soft collaboration with the universe, an invisible hand adjusting paths, smoothing obstacles, and curving events toward potential. Finn and Jake, Marceline and Bubblegum, even BMO, all contribute to this lattice of influence, their slumbering minds quietly composing the architecture of possibility. And as we drift deeper into the warmth of this vision, it becomes clear that dreams and OO are both intimate and cosmic, personal yet universal. Each mind asleep is a quiet agent of change, a gentle sculptor of probability, and a tender weaver of connection. Even as we lie here, eyes heavy, we can imagine the soft currents of dreaming minds stretching across the land, shaping, curving, and bending reality in ways that are profound, subtle, and beautiful. In the next part, we will explore how these dream currents interact with magic and intention even further, revealing how sleeping minds not only shape probability, but may reach into the hidden currents of OO itself, rewriting the world in quiet, tender, and impossible ways. As we continue our slow journey through the mechanics of dreams and OO, let us imagine the intimate ways in which dreaming minds influence the magical currents that weave through the land. Magic in OO is not rigid or mechanical. It is alive, responsive, and attuned to intention. When a mind sleeps, its thoughts act like soft vibrations, rippling through these currents and gently bending them toward imagined outcomes. Finn, dreaming of a solution to a challenge, does not merely rehearse a plan. His imagination nudges magical potential itself, creating subtle alignments that may manifest later. Jake, dreaming of fantastical stretches, tests possibilities, allowing his own magical essence to reinforce the latent elasticity of his body. In this way, dreams become a quiet bridge between tension, emotion, and the underlying magic of the universe. The influence of dreams is not uniform. It is shaped by the emotional and imaginative resonance of the sleeper. A dream filled with fear may ripple tension into the air, stiffening trees or slowing the flow of rivers, while one filled with joy or hope may coax the environment into gentle responsiveness. Marceline's dreams often carry the weight of her emotions, bending shadows and harmonizing the nocturnal soundscape in subtle ways, leaving traces that shape the moods of those who traverse the same spaces in waking hours. Even BMO's innocent imaginings emit faint pulses of possibility, nudging objects, creatures, and events toward gentle serendipity. Every dream contributes, however small, to the curvature of OO's reality. Dreams interact with one another, forming a web of unconscious influence that stretches across the land. When Finn and Jake sleep in close proximity, their dreams often interlace, blending courage with calm, excitement with playfulness, producing areas of amplified possibility. Across distance, dreaming minds can echo each other, their fields merging into harmonics that influence probabilities subtly, shifting outcomes in ways that may never be consciously noticed. A single dream of hope in one corner of OO may counteract lingering despair elsewhere, gently balancing the emotional gravity of the world, and ensuring that even in darkness, potential continues to flow. These interactions reveal that OO's dream physics operates not in isolation, but as a networked system where the sleep of one being can quietly affect another, and even minor emotional or imaginative fluctuations can ripple outward, shaping reality in unforeseen ways. Time itself feels elastic in dreams, past, present, and future, overlap in soft folds, allowing sleepers to rehearse possibilities, explore outcomes, and subtly adjust the flow of events. Finn may dream of leaping across a vast canyon, testing the limits of courage and coordination. The dream curves probability in such a way that the leap becomes more achievable in waking reality, not through force, but through a gentle alignment of potential. Even moments of rest or light sleep contribute to this subtle architecture. When a creature dozes peacefully in a sunlit meadow, its quiet contentment nudges the surrounding air and flora into minor adjustments, creating a micro-environment subtly attuned to calm and safety, a whispered hope, a fleeting curiosity, a soft sigh of relief can ripple through nearby fields, bending space ever so slightly, aligning possibilities, and preparing the way for events to unfold harmoniously. These minor curvatures accumulate over time, leaving a landscape alive with the echoes of slumber, resonant with possibility, and attuned to the inner lives of those who inhabit it. Dreams are particularly potent when paired with strong intention. Princess Bubblegum, for instance, may drift into sleep while contemplating experiments or strategies. In such states, her focus amplifies the interaction between dream currents and magical potential, leaving faint alignments in reality that can manifest later. Marceline's dreams, laced with emotion and memory, may bend shadows or coax the subtle flow of sound, creating reverberations that carry through the waking world. Finn and Jake, in unguarded sleep, reinforce the elasticity of their own capabilities and the moral currents that guide their adventures. In each case, dreams act as quiet workshops of possibility, allowing sleepers to influence reality without exerting force, leaving subtle imprints of intention, emotion, and imagination. In O, the landscape itself remembers. Meadows, forests, rivers, and mountains accumulate the effects of countless sleeping minds, storing traces of dreams in the curvature of air, the sway of trees, or the alignment of stone. A place that has witnessed years of peaceful slumber may radiate calm, subtly guiding events and actions of future wanderers. Conversely, areas shaped by restless or anxious dreaming may carry faint tension, creating soft challenges that test those who traverse them. The world itself becomes a living archive of dreams, where every sleep leaves a mark, and every dream participates in the ongoing shaping of reality. And as we imagine Finn and Jake lying under a starlit sky, drifting through dreams that ripple outward into the gentle curvature of Oo, we can sense the profound truth of this world. Dreams are not passive illusions. They are active participants in the architecture of reality, softly bending probability, aligning magical currents, and curving the universe ever so tenderly to reflect the intentions, emotions, and imagination of sleeping minds. In the next part, we will explore how these dream currents interact even more deeply with magic itself, revealing the ways in which sleeping minds may awaken latent potential and subtly rewrite reality, leaving the impossible gently within reach. And now, sleepyheads, as we drift deeper into the gentle currents of Oo's dream mechanics, we can begin to see the subtle ways in which dreams merge with magic to shape the waking world. In Oo, magic is not static. It flows like water, sensitive to the intentions and imaginations of those who sleep. When Finn dreams of a heroic act, when Jake stretches impossibly in slumber, or when Marceline hums soft melodies in the moonlight of her dreams, they are not simply imagining. They are interacting with the universe on a tender, unseen plane. The very potential for events is shaped by these currents, bending probability, coaxing possibility, and leaving faint imprints that ripple forward into waking life. Dreams operate like soft currents of potential energy, and magic acts as the medium through which these currents flow. A single dream may gently align the threads of reality, creating small openings where improbable events become possible. When Finn dreams of reaching a distant peak, the path may subtly rearrange, hidden footholds appearing, breezes shifting, and probabilities aligning so that the action becomes achievable. Jake's stretching dreams extend not just his physical body, but also the limits of what the world allows, creating quiet openings where impossibility becomes a gentle invitation. Every dream contributes in its own soft way to the architecture of possibility. The emotional weight of a dream amplifies its effects. Joy, hope, and love expand the currents, pushing probabilities outward and smoothing the surrounding environment, while fear, doubt, or sorrow can create zones of tension, curving space, time, and magical potential in ways that heighten risk or encourage caution. Marceline's dreams often carry this duality. Melodies of longing or loss ripple outward, softening some aspects of reality while subtly reshaping others, creating a balance that allows growth, reflection, and eventual resolution. Even small beings like BMO or a sleeping snail contribute to these fields, their intentions, however tiny, bending potential in gentle, cumulative ways. Dreams also interact with one another, forming an invisible lattice of influence across When multiple minds sleep in proximity or even across vast distances, their imaginative currents can resonate, overlap, or counteract each other, creating zones of heightened possibility or gentle tension. A shared hope or joy amplifies probability, increasing the likelihood of favorable outcomes. Conversely, overlapping fears or anxieties can create subtle distortions, requiring care, empathy, and awareness to smooth the flow. In this way, becomes a network of dreaming minds, each contributing to the curvature of reality, each influencing events before they fully unfold. Time itself bends softly within dreams. Past, present, and future can overlap in malleable folds, allowing sleepers to explore outcomes, rehearse choices, and experiment with actions that would be impossible in waking life. Finn may replay a battle, adjusting his strategy unconsciously. Jake may test the limits of his elasticity, stretching farther and differently than he could awake. Marceline may sing a song that reshapes the patterns of light and shadow across a moonlit glade. In this flexible, temporal landscape, dreams allow the universe to explore possibility at its own gentle pace, creating small alignments that manifest subtly when eyes open and consciousness returns. Even the physical environment responds to the presence of dreaming minds. A forest may soften beneath footsteps, a stream may hum with gentle resonance, or the alignment of clouds may echo the emotional state of slumbering beings nearby. These effects are never abrupt or jarring. They are subtle, accumulative, and persistent, creating a living tapestry of interaction where the world itself seems to breathe with the dreams of its inhabitants. In the landscape is both canvas and collaborator, attuned to intention, emotion, and imagination. Dreams also leave a kind of residual memory in the fabric of reality. Repeated dreams, particularly those charged with strong emotion, can subtly shift probabilities, creating patterns that persist across time. A hill that has witnessed many hopeful dreams may radiate calm and encouragement to travelers. A clearing that has seen sorrow or anxiety may retain faint tension, reminding passers-by of the lingering echoes of feeling. In this way, dreams do not simply fade with waking. They accumulate, layer upon layer, forming the soft, invisible architecture of possibility that underlies the waking world. Even moments of fleeting or fragmented sleep carry weight. A passing dream, a half-remembered vision, or a moment of quiet contemplation in slumber can ripple outward, nudging reality, influencing probability, and interacting with the magical currents of Nothing in sleep is wasted. Every thought, every imagined action, every emotional pulse contributes to the subtle curvature of the universe, aligning events and potential in ways that are profound yet quiet. As we picture Finn, Jake, Marceline, and Bubblegum drifting in the quiet embrace of night, their dreams intertwining with emotion, intention, and magic, we begin to sense the profound tenderness of ooh. Dreams are not passive. They are gentle agents of possibility, soft architects of reality, and invisible curators of the world's unfolding. Every sigh, every flicker of thought, every pulse of emotion leaves a mark, contributing to the living geometry of potential that surrounds all who dwell in this land. Sleepyheads, as we settle into this vision, we see that dreaming and ooh is not separate from reality, it is part of it, a continuous, gentle dialogue between mind, heart, and universe. Every sleeping mind becomes a quiet shaper of events, a tender curator of probability, and a subtle participant in the soft physics of the world. In the next segment, we will explore how these dream currents interact even more profoundly with magical forces, revealing how the sleeping mind can awaken latent power, bend hidden currents, and softly rewrite the possibilities of existence itself. Now that we have wandered through the curvature of emotional gravity and drifted along the streams of dreaming minds, we arrive at a quieter, subtler layer of ooh, the way the universe itself processes magic. Magic here is not loud, not overtly forceful. It is not a tool that demands attention, but a gentle computation, a continuous flow of energy, information, and intention that quietly shapes the world. It listens, aligns, and responds, a patient participant in the ongoing dance of possibility. Tonight, we will drift into that calm, exploring how ooh seems to think, calculate, and adapt in response to the desires, intentions, and actions of its inhabitants. In ooh, magic is more like a soft lattice of potential than a rigid set of rules. It responds not only to spells and artifacts, but also to emotion, attention, and context. When Finn swings his sword with courage, it is not the blade alone that acts. The surrounding magical field aligns with his intention, amplifying the effect, ensuring that action resonates with the possibility. Jake's elasticity is another example. It is simultaneously a physical property and a magical one, as the universe allows his body to stretch beyond ordinary constraints, in alignment with both intention and context. Magic in ooh computes possibilities quietly, nudging reality along lines that harmonize with intention and resonance rather than brute force. We can imagine the universe as a calm, attentive processor, calculating outcomes not through numbers or formulas as we might understand them, but through the soft, continuous evaluation of potential. Every action, every thought, every dream, every emotion contributes data to this subtle computation. A spell cast by Princess Bubblegum may be precise, yet it is refined by the underlying magical lattice, which adjusts timing, alignment, and effect to optimize outcome. Marceline's music carries emotional and magical weight that the universe interprets, weaving harmonies and dissonances into the quiet logic of possibility. In ooh, magic is less about power and more about subtle negotiation, a responsive system that continuously integrates the inputs of consciousness, emotion, and context. This quiet computation is closely tied to the concept of resonance. Magic responds not simply to intention, but to the alignment of mind, heart, and environment. A spell cast with clarity and focus flows effortlessly, its path guided by the natural currents of the magical lattice. A poorly conceived spell, or one misaligned with the surrounding currents, may falter, split, or produce unexpected side effects. The universe acts like a patient, subtle editor, shaping outcomes in a way that preserves coherence while allowing for creativity and flexibility. It is a system that encourages adaptation, learning, and attunement, rewarding understanding of context and emotional resonance over brute power or recklessness. Even the smallest beings participate in this computation. BMO's playful actions, for example, influence the magical field not through force, but through alignment with patterns of joy, curiosity, and gentle creativity. These inputs ripple outward, creating small adjustments in probability, shifting latent potential, and softly guiding events toward coherence. The universe of OO does not require dominance. It responds to the quality of engagement. Magic is a living calculation, integrating information from all corners of the world, weighting contributions according to intensity, clarity, and resonance, and producing outcomes that feel effortless, yet profoundly interconnected. The process is continuous and holistic. Every interaction, no matter how mundane, contributes to the ongoing computation. A leaf falling from a tree, a river bending around a stone, a soft breeze passing through a meadow. All of these are part of the quiet algorithm that governs the flow of possibility. Magic does not operate in isolation. It is woven into every fold of reality, listening to emotional gravity fields, responding to dreams, and adjusting probability in real time. The universe is both observer and participant, quietly computing, nudging, and harmonizing the forces that shape OO. Sleepyheads, imagine Finn leaping into battle while Jake stretches beside him. Marceline hums a melody in the distance, and Princess Bubblegum adjusts an experiment in her lab. The universe takes in every emotional pulse, every intention, every action, and calculates the most coherent unfolding of events. It is not deterministic in the sense we usually understand. There is no single inevitable outcome. Rather, it is probabilistic, flexible, and responsive, allowing for improvisation, creativity, and adaptation. Magic is the medium through which the quiet computation manifests, a channel for the continuous balancing of possibility and intention. We might also consider the subtle feedback loops that arise within the system. When a spell or action aligns perfectly with intention, the universe responds by reinforcing the pathways of possibility, making similar alignments slightly more probable in the future. Conversely, actions that clash with environmental or emotional resonance create slight resistance, soft obstacles that encourage recalibration. These loops are not punitive. They are instructional, gently guiding inhabitants of OO toward coherence and harmony with the broader flow of magic. The universe also records subtle traces of past magic, embedding echoes in the fabric of OO. These traces are not fixed artifacts, but latent potentials, which can be reawakened by intention, resonance, or emotional alignment. A spell performed decades ago may influence a current event if the emotional and magical conditions align, creating an almost dreamlike continuity across time and space. In this way, magic is both memory and computation, a soft ledger of intention and action that persists invisibly, waiting for the right conditions to shape reality once more. And as we imagine the quiet hum of this magical computation, we see that OO is a universe that thinks without thinking, that calculates without consciousness in the way we normally conceive it. It listens to the interplay of mind, heart, and action, integrating emotion, imagination, and intention into outcomes that feel natural, coherent, and beautifully interconnected. Magic is the language of this computation, allowing dreams, feelings, and courage to manifest in ways that are subtle yet profoundly real. In the next part, Sleepyhead, we will explore how this quiet computation interacts with the stories and narratives of OO itself, revealing how kingdoms, conflicts, and adventures arise not solely from biology or geography, but from the soft logic of imagination, intention, and magical resonance. gently shaping the world in ways that are as impossible as they are wondrous. As we continue to drift gently through the quiet workings of Oo's magical computation, it becomes clear that the universe does not process magic like a machine, nor like a strict law of physics. Instead, it operates as a living network, continuously integrating input from countless sources, responding to emotional resonance, intention, and context. Every action, thought, and dream contributes to this subtle calculation. When Finn wields his sword, it is not merely his skill or courage that produces results. The surrounding magical field participates, softly aligning with his intentions, anticipating the flow of events, and adjusting the probabilities in the background to ensure the action resonates with coherence and possibility. Jake's elastic abilities provide another remarkable example of this quiet computation in action. His stretching is not just a function of his biology, nor is it purely magical. It exists in the delicate intersection of the two, amplified by intention and emotional resonance. When Jake chooses to stretch with care, whimsy, or playfulness, the magical currents around him adjust softly, reinforcing possibilities and smoothing the pathways of action. The universe seems to treat his body not as a static object, but as a dynamic node within a living network, responsive to his choices, attuned to his moods, and ever adjusting the potential for success or novelty. Even the most subtle of beings participate in this computation. BMO, drifting through daily interactions or quiet play, generates currents of curiosity, delight, and gentle intention that ripple outward, nudging minor probabilities, subtly aligning outcomes, and influencing the environment in ways that are almost imperceptible. A small melody played on a console, a flicker of joyful motion, or a simple act of kindness contributes to the overall coherence of the magical lattice. Oo's universe is attentive, listening to each pulse, each vibration, each conscious or unconscious signal, integrating it into the ongoing computation. Magic in Oo also thrives on contextual alignment. The same action, performed in two different places, or under two different emotional states, may produce entirely distinct outcomes. Princess Bubblegum's careful experiments, Marceline's melancholic tunes, Finn's courageous leaps, and Jake's playful stretches each interact with the magical lattice differently, depending on location, emotional resonance, surrounding intentions, and even the lingering influence of past events. The universe processes these layers simultaneously, creating results that feel seamless, natural, and yet astonishingly adaptive. This quiet computation is also deeply relational. Magic does not exist in isolation. It constantly references, adjusts to, and harmonizes with emotional gravity fields, dream currents, and intention. Acts of courage, care, and creativity amplify magical flow, while discord, distraction, or misalignment create subtle resistance, encouraging adaptation rather than forcing outcomes. The system is inherently self-correcting, designed to reward coherence, clarity, and resonance. In this way, inhabitants of Oo are not only participants in the world, they are collaborators in the ongoing computation of possibility, shaping events through emotional, imaginative, and magical interaction. Even inanimate or seemingly passive elements of Oo are part of this network. Trees, rivers, mountains, and clouds absorb traces of magical and emotional activity, integrating these inputs into their latent potential. A forest that has witnessed decades of dreams and emotions may subtly adjust probabilities within its bounds, influencing the behavior of creatures, guiding adventurers, or smoothing challenges for those attuned to its currents. Rivers may carry not only water, but echoes of intention, allowing currents to align gently with the flow of action or probability. Magic is everywhere, listening to everything, and processing it all in a continuous, patient computation that values coherence and resonance above force or speed. Sleepyheads, imagine a scene where Finn, Jake, Marceline, and Princess Bubblegum each engage in small, seemingly unrelated acts. A leap, a song, a careful experiment, a stretch. The universe absorbs each pulse, each intention, each emotional signal, and integrates them into a vast, quiet computation. Outcomes align, probabilities shift, and the magical currents adjust without fanfare or force, producing results that feel effortless yet are underpinned by an intricate web of influence. In this way, Ooh feels alive, responsive, and intimately attuned to the lives and intentions of its inhabitants. And as we settle into this calm vision, it becomes clear that magic in Ooh is not about spectacle or dominance. It is a subtle language of interaction, a patient system that integrates emotion, intention, and context into coherent, adaptive outcomes. It rewards clarity, empathy, and imagination, shaping reality in ways that feel natural, seamless, and often impossible. In the next part, Sleepyheads, we will explore how this quiet computation of magic interacts with the stories, kingdoms, and narratives of Ooh itself, revealing how civilizations, adventures, and conflicts arise not solely through biology or geography, but through the soft logic of imagination, intention, and magical resonance, creating worlds that are as impossible as they are tender. As we continue to drift further into the quiet computation of magic, Sleepyheads, we can begin to notice the remarkable way in which Ooh's universe integrates past, present, and potential future events into a living, responsive system. Magic does not simply react to immediate intention. It carries traces, memories, and echoes of prior actions, dreams, and emotional flows. Every spell cast, every act of courage, every whimsical stretch or song leaves a residue, a faint but persistent trace that the universe registers. These traces do not enforce rigid outcomes, but they bias probabilities, subtly favoring actions that resonate with accumulated intention and coherence. In this way, the magical field is a kind of quiet memory, a ledger of potential shaped by the ongoing life of the land and its inhabitants. Consider the Candy Kingdom, where Princess Bubblegum's meticulous experiments and careful governance interact with magic on multiple levels. Every adjustment she makes, whether it's calibrating a chemical reaction or resolving a political concern, produces ripples that the universe's quiet computation interprets and integrates. The magical currents around the kingdom align with her intentions, ensuring that her thoughtful influence flows naturally into outcomes that are coherent, safe, and sometimes unexpectedly fortuitous. Even seemingly trivial experiments, conducted with care and attention, nudge the underlying probabilities of reality, harmonizing them with her emotional and rational intentions. At the same time, this system is non-linear and adaptive, meaning that small actions can have disproportionately significant effects when they resonate with broader currents. A dream, a song, a playful act by Jake, or even a minor emotional shift can ripple outward, interacting with layers of previous magical computation to create opportunities or challenges in ways that feel spontaneous and alive. Magic is sensitive not only to magnitude, but to alignment and resonance. A carefully considered intention, harmonized with emotion and context, flows effortlessly through the system. Conversely, discordant or misaligned intention encounters resistance, not as punishment, but as subtle feedback, gently guiding the dreamer or actor to reconsider, adapt, or attune more carefully to the environment and currents around them. This adaptive quality gives O its sense of fluidity, unpredictability, and wonder. The universe is not a fixed machine. It is a responsive organism, quietly interpreting input from countless sources, integrating intention, emotion, and context, and producing outcomes that feel both coherent and astonishingly flexible. Finn's leaps of courage, Jake's elastic improvisations, Marceline's melodies, and BMO's playful inventions all contribute to the computation, shaping probabilities with a soft touch. The system is forgiving yet responsive, always preserving the thread of coherence while allowing space for creativity, experimentation, and whimsy. The magic of O also interacts intimately with narrative and story, suggesting that the universe itself is attentive to the structures and arcs that unfold within it. Actions that harmonize with ongoing stories, themes, and emotional arcs tend to flow more smoothly, as though the magical computation recognizes patterns, context, and meaning. A heroic act, a moment of selflessness, or an inspired improvisation resonates not only with immediate intention, but with the broader arc of narrative potential, creating outcomes that feel satisfying, logical, and yet still delightfully impossible. In this way, the quiet computation of magic supports coherence not only in space and time, but in story, ensuring that events align with the ongoing tapestry of possibility. Even when multiple magical currents interact, the system remains patient and self-correcting. Conflicting intentions, overlapping dreams, or competing emotional flows do not result in chaos, but in subtle adjustments. Probabilities bend, opportunities shift, and resonance recalibrates to accommodate competing currents, preserving overall coherence while leaving room for improvisation. This is the quiet brilliance of Oo's computation. It is flexible, responsive, and holistic, integrating countless micro-influences into outcomes that are simultaneously surprising, meaningful, and harmonious. We can imagine a moment where Finn, dreaming of adventure, coordinates with Jake's playful slumber, Marceline's melodic improvisation, and Princess Bubblegum's deliberate intentions. The universe listens to each pulse, integrating it into the ongoing calculation, subtly nudging probabilities, aligning magical currents, and harmonizing the interplay of mind, emotion, and action. The result is seamless, a world that responds naturally to the inhabitants' intentions, while preserving the sense of wonder, unpredictability, and possibility that makes Ooh feel alive. Even objects and locations participate in this computation. Ancient artifacts, enchanted locations, and long-forgotten sites carry residual potential, traces of prior intentions, and echoes of emotional resonance. These echoes are soft yet persistent, waiting for alignment with the current action or intention to awaken latent possibility. A sword once wielded with courage, a tree that has sheltered generations of dreams, a hill that has witnessed countless acts of joy, all carry subtle imprints that the universe interprets, integrating them into the ongoing computation of magical potential. And as we settle further into this vision, we begin to see the quiet intelligence of Ooh itself, a universe that computes continuously, patiently, and attentively, integrating emotion, intention, story, and dream into a soft, responsive web of possibility. Magic is its language, probability its medium, and coherence its aim, producing outcomes that feel natural, astonishing, and deeply harmonious. In the next part, we will explore how this quiet computation interacts with the very structure of kingdoms, conflicts, and civilizations in Ooh, revealing how narrative, magic, and intention converge to shape worlds that feel alive, impossible, and intimately attuned to the hearts and dreams of their inhabitants. And now, sleepyheads, As we drift further into the quiet computation of magic, we begin to see its influence not as external force, but as a soft, continuous negotiation between possibility and intention. The universe of OO is never inert. It does not simply wait for action. Instead, it listens, absorbs, and integrates, calculating in a patient, gentle rhythm that feels almost like breathing. Each pulse of intention, each flicker of emotion, each careful or careless act contributes to this computation, creating a living lattice of potential that is responsive, adaptive, and deeply attuned to the rhythms of its inhabitants. Magic in OO does not demand energy in the way one might imagine with conventional physics. It is not consumed or depleted, but rather activated by resonance and alignment. A spell, a dream, a song, or even a gesture of kindness interacts with the underlying lattice of magical potential, nudging it, amplifying it, or redirecting it in ways that preserve coherence while allowing for improvisation. Finn's courage, Jake's elasticity, Marceline's melodies, Princess Bubblegum's careful experiments, and even BMO's playful curiosity all feed into this network, each pulse interpreted, weighted, and softly integrated into outcomes that appear seamless, yet astonishingly precise. This quiet computation is fundamentally relational. Magic does not exist in isolation. It continuously references the surrounding emotional, imaginative, and environmental context. An act performed in joy flows more smoothly than one performed in fear, not because fear cannot produce effects, but because joy aligns more readily with the currents of possibility. Similarly, a deliberate, focused intention is more effective than an unfocused or conflicted one, as the universe's computation naturally harmonizes with clarity. Even subtle alignment, like the harmony of a song with the rustle of leaves or the rhythm of footsteps across a meadow, can enhance magical flow, producing outcomes that feel both natural and improbably perfect. The universe also preserves traces of past magic, a form of quiet memory that softens, informs, and guides present possibilities. Artifacts, locations, and even enduring emotions carry echoes of prior influence. A sword that has been wielded with courage, a tree that has witnessed generations of joy, or a hill scarred by sorrow contains latent potential that can interact with current intentions. When aligned with the present action, these echoes awaken gently, nudging probabilities, harmonizing currents, and sometimes creating entirely new outcomes that feel both spontaneous and inevitable. This is OO's way of remembering, not with rigid permanence, but with fluid, adaptive resonance. Another remarkable feature of this computation is its ability to integrate competing influences. Multiple emotional or magical currents do not cancel each other out abruptly. Instead, the universe adjusts, bending probabilities, creating soft tension, and allowing space for improvisation and adaptation. Conflicting intentions produce subtle curvatures in the flow of events, inviting cooperation, creativity, or reconsideration, rather than forcing resolution through abrupt consequences. This adaptive quality ensures that the system remains coherent, resilient, and deeply alive, always preserving the possibility of meaningful action while respecting the agency of the inhabitants of OO. Even seemingly minor or passive participants influence this computation. A quiet dream, a fleeting curiosity, a gentle act of play or care contributes to the lattice of magical potential, subtly shifting probability, aligning events, and maintaining coherence. These contributions accumulate, often imperceptibly, producing outcomes that feel natural yet are shaped by countless soft interactions. OO's universe does not separate the significant from the insignificant. It treats all pulses of intention, however small, as data to be integrated into the ongoing calculation of possibility. Sleepyheads, imagine the world of Ooh as a vast, responsive network, a living lattice of magical computation, stretching across land, sky, rivers, and forests. Finn leaps across a canyon. Jake stretches impossibly far. Marceline hums under the moonlight. Princess Bubblegum tinkers in her lab, and BMO plays quietly nearby. Each action, emotion, and intention is absorbed into the lattice, interpreted, weighted, and softly integrated. Probabilities bend, outcomes align, and the magical currents adjust, producing a world that feels alive, coherent, and astonishingly adaptive. Every effect, however subtle, is part of a continuous, gentle computation that preserves harmony while allowing for improvisation and wonder. Even kingdoms, civilizations, and societies are shaped by this quiet computation. The magical lattice interacts with the collective intentions, narratives, and emotional states of inhabitants, aligning probabilities to support coherent outcomes on a larger scale. The Candy Kingdom thrives not solely because of geography or biology, but because the cumulative resonance of Princess Bubblegum's careful attention, the citizens' emotional engagement, and the magic inherent in the land continuously reinforce one another. Similarly, conflicts, adventures, and alliances emerge naturally as the universe calculates interactions across emotional, magical, and narrative fields, producing outcomes that feel narratively satisfying, emotionally coherent, and delightfully improbable. And as we let this vision settle, sleepyheads, we can feel the gentle intelligence of Ooh itself, a universe that computes without thinking, balances without force, and responds without haste. Magic is its language, probability its medium, and coherence its guiding principle. Every dream, every emotion, every act of intention contributes to a living, adaptive system that nurtures possibility while preserving wonder, a universe where the impossible becomes quietly, beautifully plausible. In the next segment, we will explore how this quiet computation of magic interacts with the very narratives and structures of Ooh, revealing how kingdoms, adventures, and conflicts are shaped not merely by matter or geography, but through the soft logic of story, intention, and magical resonance, crafting a world that is as alive as it is impossibly enchanting. Now that we have wandered through the quiet computation of magic, feeling the way it listens, integrates, and harmonizes with the intentions and emotions of Ooh's inhabitants, we arrive at a place that feels familiar yet entirely extraordinary: the kingdoms themselves. In Ooh, the land is not shaped solely by geography, biology, or conventional rules of settlement. Instead, places form, persist, and thrive according to the needs of story, narrative resonance, and imaginative coherence. Tonight, we will drift into the logic that underlies the formation of these kingdoms, exploring how narrative necessity, intention, and emotional gravity shape the world in ways that feel seamless and alive. Imagine the Candy Kingdom. On first glance, it seems to be a sweet, orderly place, carefully designed and governed. But beneath the surface, its existence and structure are intimately tied to the stories that unfold within it. Princess Bubblegum's adventures, her ethical dilemmas, and the emotional lives of her citizens all feed into the shaping of the kingdom itself. Streets align with narrative necessity. Conflicts provide structure for moral exploration, and whimsical architecture mirrors the imaginative and emotional resonance of the community. The kingdom is less a static space than a living reflection of the ongoing stories of its inhabitants, responding to intentions, dreams, and emotional currents in subtle ways. This principle extends across Ooh. The Fire Kingdom, Ice Kingdom, and Lumpy Space Kingdom are not merely geographic or biological constructs. They exist because the stories require them, because the narrative arcs of characters such as Marceline, the Ice King, and Lumpy Space Princess demand a stage. Their boundaries, features, and quirks emerge naturally from narrative tension, emotional resonance, and magical computation. Volcanoes erupt when stories of conflict call for drama. Frozen wastes persist when tales of isolation, longing, or melancholy unfold. Even whimsical inconsistencies, like floating islands or sentient candy trees, serve the story, providing spaces for creativity, emotional exploration, and the improbable adventures that Ooh thrives upon. Kingdoms are shaped by the collective emotional and imaginative output of their inhabitants, integrated through the quiet computation of magic we explored earlier. The Candy Kingdom thrives because citizens act, dream, and imagine in ways that reinforce its existence and coherence. The Fire Kingdom burns with dramatic energy because its emotional and narrative resonance demands intensity, change, and passion. These places are not accidental. They emerge naturally from the interplay of intention, story, and magical responsiveness, forming structures that make sense within the broader tapestry of Oo's narrative logic. The concept of narrative-driven geography also explains the fluidity and impossibility of many locations. Mountains appear to rise in response to a character's journey, rivers curve toward moments of discovery, and forests rearrange themselves to create paths of emotional or narrative significance. The universe integrates these narrative requirements into the underlying magical computation, bending probability, adjusting physical features, and softening transition so that the world feels coherent while still leaving room for surprise. This is why Ooh can feel so expansive, impossible, and yet utterly believable. A world shaped not by maps or physical laws, but by the soft imperatives of story and possibility. Even kingdoms with less human-like inhabitants obey this narrative logic. The Ice Kingdom is anchored by the Ice King's obsessions and melancholy, growing cold and isolated as his story unfolds. Lumpy Space Kingdom shifts and fluctuates, reflecting the emotional drama and whimsical needs of its royal family. These places are not simply landscapes. They are living stages, choreographed to support the unfolding arcs of character, adventure, and emotional resonance. Magic ensures that these spaces remain adaptable, responsive, and aligned with the needs of story so that every adventure has the right stage at the right moment. The formation of Oo's kingdoms also reflects the interplay between collective intention and narrative coherence. Citizens, heroes, and magical beings contribute to the shaping of their surroundings simply by acting in accordance with the stories that need to be told. A peaceful village thrives not because of geography alone, but because the narrative requires a haven, a space of calm, reflection, and moral grounding. Similarly, a treacherous mountain pass exists because the story needs trials, challenges, and opportunities for growth. The universe listens to these collective intentions and arranges physical, magical, and emotional structures accordingly, crafting a landscape that is always alive, always coherent, and always attuned to the rhythms of story. Even smaller, transient features of the world are narrative responsive. A peculiar hill, a hidden grove, or a twisting river may appear just when a story needs it, fading or shifting once the narrative has passed. These features are not random. They are softly computed by the universe, shaped by the interplay of emotional resonance, magical currents, and narrative requirement. Adventures unfold in these spaces as naturally as breathing, yet the alignment of possibility and story ensures that challenges, discoveries, and emotional beats fall into place with tender precision. Kingdoms in Ooh are also tied to emotional gravity fields, the gentle forces we explored earlier. The collective emotions of inhabitants, fear, hope, joy, longing, shape the very fabric of the kingdom, influencing architecture, weather, and magical resonance. A kingdom of hope might sparkle with light and warmth. A kingdom of melancholy may shift toward shadows and quiet corners. And a kingdom of whimsy may float between possibility and improbability. These emotional signatures, integrated through magical computation, ensure that each kingdom is uniquely attuned to the inner lives of those who dwell within it, reinforcing narrative cohesion and supporting ongoing adventures. As we drift slowly through this understanding, sleepyheads, we begin to see that U is not merely a collection of kingdoms, conflicts, and landscapes. It is a living, adaptive stage, sculpted by the needs of story, the resonance of emotion, and the quiet computation of magic. Geography, politics, architecture, and magic all serve the narrative, forming spaces that feel coherent, impossible, and tenderly responsive to the inhabitants' intentions. In the next part, we will explore how these narrative-driven kingdoms intersect with the elastic, magical, and dreaming elements of U, creating a fully integrated world where every story, dream, and act of courage gently reshapes the land and its possibilities. As we continue to drift through the subtle architecture of U's kingdom, sleepyheads, it becomes clear that these places are co-created by story, magic, and the intentions of their inhabitants. A kingdom is never fully fixed. It is a living, adaptive space that responds to narrative demand, emotional currents, and magical resonance. The Candy Kingdom, for instance, exists because the stories require it as a hub of community, morality, and adventure. Streets, towers, and candy forests align not only with practical needs, but with the unfolding arcs of character, plot, and emotion. Every corner, every path, every soft twist of a candy tree resonates with the intentions and dreams of the people who inhabit it, producing a space that feels alive and narratively coherent. In the Fire Kingdom, we see a different principle at work. Its jagged mountains, rivers of lava, and ever-shifting terrain reflect the emotional and narrative intensity of its ruler and inhabitants. The kingdom adapts to conflict, drama, and passion, producing a landscape that is as challenging as the stories that unfold within it. Lava flows may shift to guide or challenge adventurers. Volcanic peaks may rise in response to narrative tension, and the very air seems to hum with the possibilities of heroic or disastrous outcomes. The Fire Kingdom is a stage constructed by the universe to respond dynamically to the needs of narrative and emotional resonance, allowing adventures to unfold naturally, yet impossibly. Lumpy Space Kingdom offers yet another perspective. Its unpredictable, floating topology mirrors the whims, insecurities, and drama of its lumpy royalty. Peaks and valleys appear or vanish according to the narrative necessity, softening or complicating the paths of those who enter. Here, the universe's quiet computation interacts directly with narrative demand. The kingdom exists as a living story element, continuously recalculating and adapting to the emotional, magical, and imaginative currents of its inhabitants. These shifts are not chaotic. They are attuned to story coherence, ensuring that even impossible events feel plausible, and that adventures remain rich, surprising, and emotionally meaningful. The Ice Kingdom, shaped by the melancholy and longing of the Ice King, demonstrates how emotional gravity fields and narrative necessity converge to form space. Vast frozen landscapes emerge where isolation and obsession dominate. Glaciers shift in response to narrative tension, and enchanted ice flows create the perfect stage for both adventure and reflection. The universe computes these outcomes quietly, balancing magical potential, emotional resonance, and story coherence to ensure that the kingdom supports the unfolding arcs of its characters. Even the tiniest detail, a frozen pond, a curling snowdrift, or a hidden ice cave, exists because it serves a narrative purpose, harmonizing with magical computation and emotional gravity alike. Kingdoms in U are also profoundly interconnected through narrative logic. Events in one kingdom can subtly influence the probabilities and possibilities in another, not through conventional geography, but through emotional and magical resonance. A joyful act in the Candy Kingdom may ripple outward, softening tensions in distant lands. A dramatic upheaval in the Fire Kingdom may alter the magical currents that shape possibilities elsewhere. The universe integrates these inputs into its quiet computation, ensuring that narrative, emotion, and magic form a coherent lattice that sustains the improbable yet seamless world of Wu. Even transient or minor kingdoms, hidden groves, wandering villages, or ephemeral magical realms follow the same principle. They exist not because of terrain or biology, but because the narrative requires them. These spaces emerge in response to story needs, magical resonance, and emotional currents, and may fade or shift once their purpose is fulfilled. The world of U is thus a flexible, adaptive canvas, dynamically constructed by the universe in response to the intentions, emotions, and stories of those who dwell within it. As we settle into this understanding, Sleepy, we begin to see that kingdoms in U are less about physical reality and more about narrative coherence. Geography, architecture, magic, and emotion all converge to form living, adaptive stages for stories to unfold. Each kingdom reflects the dreams, fears, joys, and intentions of its inhabitants, harmonizing with magical computation and narrative necessity. In the next part, we will explore how these kingdoms, dreams, and magical currents intersect with the impossible mechanics of U itself, revealing a world where story, magic, and imagination are inseparable, and where reality bends tenderly to the needs of narrative. As we drift further into the gentle, improbable logic of U's kingdoms, sleepyheads, we begin to see that these spaces are living manifestations of story, dynamically shaped to meet the needs of narrative, emotion, and magic. They are not bound by conventional geography or biology, nor by ordinary rules of physics. Instead, the universe carefully integrates intention, emotional resonance, and narrative demand to craft environments that feel both coherent and impossibly alive. Every kingdom, every hidden grove, every winding path exists to support the arcs of adventure, growth, and emotional exploration that unfold within it. The Candy Kingdom, for example, is an intricate dance of narrative necessity and emotional coherence. Its candy forests, gumdrop streets, and caramel towers do not exist solely for practical habitation. They are constructed by the universe to respond to the moral, emotional, and narrative currents of its citizens. When Finn, Jake, or Princess Bubblegum act with courage, care, or curiosity, these currents reinforce the kingdom's stability and coherence. Streets subtly align to guide heroes toward story beats, towers shift to present new challenges or discoveries, and even the smallest detail, a candy cane lamppost or a caramel fountain, exists because it supports emotional resonance and narrative possibility. The universe listens and adapts, ensuring that story, magic, and environment work in quiet harmony. The Fire Kingdom offers a contrasting example. Its jagged peaks, rivers of lava, and ever-changing topography reflect intense emotional and narrative energy. The kingdom itself bends and shifts in response to the passions, conflicts, and ambitions of its inhabitants. A volcanic eruption may coincide with dramatic tension in the story, guiding heroes through challenges that test courage, creativity, and adaptability. Lava flows may redirect adventurers toward unexpected encounters, while sudden ash clouds provide both obstacle and opportunity. The Fire Kingdom exists not only as a physical space, but as a responsive narrative stage constructed by the universe to align with story coherence, emotional gravity, and magical computation. Lumpy Space Kingdom reveals yet another principle. Its floating, shifting terrain mirrors the whims, insecurities, and drama of its lumpy royalty. Peaks and valleys appear, vanish, or drift as narrative necessity dictates, allowing adventures to unfold in ways that feel impossible yet entirely consistent with the kingdom's character. The universe quietly computes these changes, integrating emotional resonance, magical currents, and story requirements, so that every twist, rise, or fall supports the narrative arcs of the characters. This is why Lumpy Space Kingdom feels both chaotic and harmonious. The unpredictability is narrative-driven, the coherence shaped by the quiet intelligence of Oo's magical computation. Even the Ice Kingdom demonstrates how emotional and narrative forces converge to form space. The Ice King's obsessions, loneliness, and longing shape the frozen landscape, producing glaciers, ice caves, and snowfields that reflect his inner state while simultaneously creating challenges and stages for adventure. Icebergs may shift slightly to allow or block passage. Snowdrifts may reveal hidden paths, and frozen lakes may guide or test adventurers. Each environmental feature exists not because of geography, but because the story demands it, and the universe's quiet computation ensures that these features align with magical, emotional, and narrative currents. Transient or minor kingdoms follow the same principle. Hidden groves, enchanted meadows, and ephemeral magical realms emerge when stories require them, persist just long enough to support adventure, and fade when narrative necessity has passed. They exist to facilitate plot, emotional development, or magical experimentation, demonstrating that the universe prioritizes story coherence above rigid physical rules. Even when inhabitants do not consciously notice these shifts, the world bends tenderly to narrative need, producing spaces that feel intuitive, surprising, and impossibly alive. Kingdoms also interact with one another through emotional and magical resonance, forming a subtle lattice of influence across Ooh. Joy in the Candy Kingdom may ripple outward, softening tensions elsewhere. Drama in the Fire Kingdom may heighten tension in distant lands, subtly reshaping probabilities to maintain story coherence. The universe integrates these influences seamlessly, ensuring that narrative threads, emotional flows, and magical currents remain interconnected, adaptive, and harmoniously aligned. Adventure and consequence ripple through these kingdoms naturally, guided by the quiet computation of the universe and the needs of story. As we drift gently through this vision, sleepyheads, we begin to perceive Ooh as a living narrative ecosystem, where kingdoms, magic, dreams, and emotion interlace into a tapestry of possibility. Geography, architecture, and magical potential serve story, aligning with narrative beats, character development, and emotional resonance. Each kingdom reflects the intentions, dreams, and inner lives of its inhabitants, producing spaces that feel alive, flexible, and improbably coherent. Even the impossible becomes plausible when the universe calculates with care, bending reality to meet narrative need while preserving wonder. And so, as we imagine these kingdoms, candy, fire, lumpy space, ice, and countless hidden realms, we see that Oo's world is alive with narrative logic, a delicate choreography of story, emotion, and magic. In the next and final segment, Sleepyheads, we will explore how all these elements, elasticity, emotional gravity, dreams, magical computation, and narrative-driven kingdoms intertwine, revealing the fully integrated, impossibly enchanting physics of O, where story, imagination, and magic converge to create a world that is breathtakingly alive. And now, sleepyheads, as we settle into the final layer of understanding about Oo's kingdoms, we begin to perceive a profound truth. These spaces are alive not because of geography or biology, but because of story itself. The universe, attuned to intention, emotion, and narrative resonance, arranges kingdoms to serve the unfolding arcs of its inhabitants. Streets, rivers, towers, and forests emerge, shift, or recede according to the needs of adventure, the cadence of emotion, and the imperatives of magical computation. In Oo, place is never static. It is responsive, adaptive, and intimately intertwined with the currents of story, emotion, and imagination. Take the Candy Kingdom once more as an example. Its citizens act, dream, and interact in ways that continuously shape the kingdom's coherence and stability. When Finn leaps courageously into action, or when Bubblegum experiments with care, the world around them responds quietly yet perceptibly. Candy streets may subtly shift to guide footsteps. Towers may tilt to create new challenges or opportunities, and forests of sugar and gum may rearrange to align with story beats. Even the smallest details, a candy lamppost, a caramel fountain, or a gumdrop garden, exist because they support emotional resonance and narrative possibility, harmonizing with the quiet computation of the magical lattice that underlies O. The Fire Kingdom, by contrast, reflects intensity, conflict, and drama. Lava flows curve to direct adventures, volcanic peaks rise to create narrative tension, and the air itself hums with the possibility. Here, narrative necessity, emotional resonance, and magical computation converge to produce a kingdom that is challenging, dynamic, and alive. The universe responds to the currents of emotion and story, ensuring that adventure is both possible and narratively coherent. Even when events seem chaotic or improbable, the quiet computation underlying the kingdom ensures that outcomes remain consistent with a narrative logic and emotional alignment, a lumpy space. Kingdom demonstrates another layer of narrative fluidity. Its peaks, valleys, and floating landscapes shift unpredictably, reflecting the whims, insecurities, and dramatic needs of its royal inhabitants. Yet this apparent chaos is far from random. The universe continuously integrates emotional resonance, magical currents, and narrative requirements, creating spaces where adventures, conflicts, and resolutions unfold with seamless coherence. Lumpy Space Kingdom is chaotic and harmonious at once, demonstrating the universe's remarkable ability to calculate, adapt, and integrate the needs of story, character, and emotion. Even the Ice Kingdom embodies this principle. The melancholy, longing, and obsessions of the Ice King shape glaciers, snowfields, and ice caves, creating challenges, stages, and opportunities for adventures. The magical computation underlying Oo integrates these emotional and narrative currents, adjusting probabilities, nudging possibilities, and ensuring that each ice formation, frozen lake, or hidden cave supports the flow of story. Here, too, the environment is responsive, living, and intimately tied to the emotional and narrative needs of its inhabitants. Transient kingdoms, hidden groves, and ephemeral magical spaces also follow the same principles. They appear when stories require them, persist for the duration necessary, and fade when narrative need has passed. The universe constructs these spaces as needed, integrating emotional resonance, magical computation, and narrative coherence into their very existence. Nothing is wasted. Every pulse of intention, every dream, and every act of creativity contributes to the ongoing formation and adjustment of the world. These kingdoms are also interconnected, through subtle emotional and magical resonance. Joy, hope, or courage in one kingdom can ripple outward, softening challenges or enabling possibility elsewhere. Tension, conflict, or despair may create zones of subtle resistance, gently shaping probabilities to maintain narrative coherence and emotional balance. The universe processes these interactions continuously, ensuring that the world remains responsive, flexible, and harmoniously aligned. In narrative and magic are inseparable, and kingdoms are both stage and participant in the living story of the land. As we visualize in its entirety, sleepyheads, we can sense the delicate, improbable choreography that sustains it. Kingdoms, magical currents, dream currents, emotional gravity fields, and the elasticity of characters all intertwine into a seamless lattice of possibility, harmonized by the universe's quiet computation. Every story, every act of courage, every playful stretch, every song, and every dream contributes to the living architecture of the world, bending space, emotion, and narrative to create coherence, wonder, and impossibility in equal measure. And so, sleepyheads, as we drift into this understanding, we can see that the physics of its kingdoms, magic, dreams, and adventures, is not governed by conventional rules. It is governed by story, resonance, and quiet computation, a system that listens, integrates, and responds. It is a world where the impossible becomes gently, beautifully plausible, where narrative shapes place, where emotion bends reality, and where magic computes endlessly to preserve coherence, wonder, and delight. In the next and final segment, we will weave together all these threads: elasticity, emotional gravity, dream mechanics, magical computation, and narrative-driven kingdoms, revealing the full tapestry of the physics of impossible things, a world where imagination, intention, and magic converge to create a universe that is as impossibly alive as it is tenderly coherent. We've drifted through elastic bodies, emotional gravity, dreaming minds, magical computation, and kingdoms shaped by narrative resonance. Now we arrive at a final, almost imperceptible layer of ooze physics, the meta-engine, the invisible logic of story itself, which hums quietly beneath every adventure, every kingdom, every act of magic and intention. It is the framework that allows impossible things to exist coherently, the soft law that guides probability, emotion, and magic in alignment with narrative potential. Tonight we will explore how this invisible engine functions, how stories themselves exert influence on the world, and how becomes a universe where imagination is a tangible force. Imagine, Sleepy. That story is not merely a record of events, but a physical current, subtle and pervasive, flowing through time, space, and consciousness. Every choice a character makes, every action in a plot, every emotional beat creates a ripple that the meta-engine interprets, weighting possibilities, adjusting probabilities, and softly realigning events to ensure coherence. Finn's courageous leaps, Jake's playful improvisations, Princess Bubblegum's careful planning, and Marceline's emotive songs are all not only narrative threads, but inputs into this invisible physics, each pulse contributing to the ongoing computation that guides reality. This meta-engine functions like an invisible scaffold, holding together the improbable and impossible. It ensures that events unfold with internal logic, even when they defy conventional physics, biology, or time. A sword can grow wings, a dog can stretch across a canyon, and kingdoms can emerge or dissolve according to the needs of the narrative. Yet all of these impossibilities feel cohesive and natural. The meta-engine quietly coordinates probabilities, emotional currents, magical potentials, and narrative demands so that the world responds in ways that are surprising, imaginative, and deeply resonant. One remarkable aspect of the meta-engine is that it is bi-directional. Stories do not merely describe the world, they shape it. When Finn dreams of heroism, the universe aligns subtly to create opportunities for courage. When Bubblegum considers the moral weight of her experiments, the Candy Kingdom itself adjusts, its streets, towers, and magical potentials aligning with her intentions. When Marceline sings, the melodies reverberate through space, influencing magical computation, emotional fields, and narrative potential. The meta-engine listens to intention, emotion, and imagination alike, converting them into probability adjustments, environmental shifts, and magical alignment. Sleepyheads, the meta-engine also operates across time as a flexible medium. Past, present, and future are not rigidly separated. They are threads woven together by the engine's computation. Actions in the present echo into latent potential, adjusting probabilities of future events. Dreams of past adventures subtly shape current possibilities. Traces of emotion, intention, and magical interaction are stored not as memory, but as soft, responsive potential, waiting for alignment with story and action to manifest. This allows OO to feel coherent even when events are nonlinear, impossible, or temporally fluid. Another essential property of the meta-engine is its responsiveness to emotional resonance. The universe interprets the weight, clarity, and sincerity of emotion, aligning outcomes accordingly. Courage, joy, curiosity, and care resonate strongly, producing smooth paths through narrative potential, while confusion, fear, or discord introduce subtle friction, guiding actors toward alignment with story coherence. Magic, dreams, kingdoms, and even elastic bodies like Jake all respond to this underlying current, producing results that feel intuitive, yet astonishing, familiar, yet impossible. The meta-engine also interacts intimately with narrative necessity. Stories require arcs, challenges growth and resolution. The universe adjusts reality, probability, and magical flow to ensure that these arcs remain coherent. A villain must have opportunity, a hero must face trials, and a resolution must feel satisfying. These adjustments are subtle, integrated into the quiet computation of magic, emotion, and intention, so that the audience, sleepyheads like you, lying in bed, feels that events unfold naturally, even as they twist and surprise. Narrative need is a soft physical force, bending reality, guiding possibilities, and ensuring coherence across every layer of OO. In addition, the meta-engine is inherently self-correcting and adaptive. When a story thread risks incoherence, the universe gently nudges probabilities, realigns magical currents, and softens or emphasizes outcomes to restore balance. Adventures proceed in ways that feel fluid and harmonious, even when actions are unpredictable or impossible. The world of OO remains internally consistent, not through rigid law, but through constant adjustment and alignment driven by narrative, emotion, and imagination. This invisible physics also explains why OO can be so expansively impossible. Floating islands, sentient candy, elastic dogs, time loops, and dream-altered realities all coexist because the meta-engine coordinates them in service of story. It ensures that each element, no matter how absurd, resonates with the emotional, narrative, and magical logic of the world. It is the reason why audiences and inhabitants alike accept impossible events as coherent and meaningful. Impossibility itself becomes harmonious, shaped by the invisible scaffolding of narrative computation. Sleepyheads, imagine a single moment where Finn leaps to save a friend, Jake stretches across impossible distance, Marceline plays a melody that influences reality. Bubblegum makes a decisive choice in her lab, and BMO acts with playful curiosity. The meta-engine absorbs all these pulses, emotional, narrative, imaginative, and integrates them into the ongoing computation of reality. Probabilities bend, magical currents adjust, kingdoms subtly shift, and the impossible becomes not just plausible, but perfectly orchestrated. This is the universe thinking without thinking, computing without conscious awareness, and harmonizing impossibility into coherence. As we settle into this vision, we begin to understand that the physics of OO are metaphysical, narrative-driven, and deeply responsive. Elasticity, emotional gravity, dreams, magic, and narrative-driven kingdoms all converge under the quiet, invisible influence of the meta-engine. It is the system that ensures that the world of Adventure Time is impossibly coherent, astonishingly flexible, and profoundly alive. In the next part, Sleepyheads, we will explore how all these layers, elastic bodies, emotional currents, dreams, magical computation, narrative-shaped kingdoms, and the meta-engine itself intertwine to create the fully integrated physics of OO, revealing a world where imagination, story, and magic converge to form a universe that is impossibly alive, responsive, and breathtakingly coherent. As we continue to drift through the gentle hum of OO's meta-engine, Sleepyheads, it becomes clear that this invisible physics does more than simply orchestrate events. It binds the layers of reality together. The elasticity of Jake, the emotional gravity fields, the dream-altered worlds, the magical computation, and the kingdoms shaped by narrative are all threads in a vast, interwoven tapestry. The meta-engine ensures that these threads align, subtly nudging probabilities and outcomes so that even the most improbable events feel coherent, natural, and meaningful. Every leap of courage, every playful improvisation, every dream and act of magic contributes to this ongoing orchestration, a quiet computation that hums beneath every story and adventure. Sleepyheads, imagine the meta-engine as a lattice of invisible currents extending through time, space, and consciousness. Each character, each emotion, each act of imagination sends ripples into this lattice, which the universe interprets, weights, and softly integrates. Finn's heroism, Jake's whimsy, Bubblegum's careful experiments, and Marceline's emotional resonance all contribute pulses to the system. These pulses do not merely influence the immediate environment. They propagate through magical computation, narrative structure, emotional gravity, and even the very kingdoms themselves, shaping reality with subtle precision. The universe is constantly listening, calculating, and adapting, producing outcomes that are coherent, astonishing, and deeply satisfying. One of the most remarkable aspects of the meta-engine is how it coordinates layers of possibility. A single action may interact with magical fields, narrative necessity, emotional resonance, and the latent potential of kingdoms simultaneously. The universe integrates all of these currents, producing outcomes that feel seamless and inevitable, even when the action is impossible. A sword may sprout wings, a dog may stretch across a canyon, or a kingdom may shift to accommodate narrative need, and yet everything remains internally consistent. This is the invisible physics of story itself, softly computing coherence across the improbable, impossible, and imaginative. The meta-engine is also attentive to the subtleties of emotion and intention. It does not merely register the magnitude of an act, but its clarity, sincerity, and resonance. Courage aligned with purpose flows smoothly, producing outcomes that feel effortless yet meaningful. Playfulness, curiosity, and creativity amplify magical and narrative potential. Even misaligned or confused intentions are interpreted by the system, introducing gentle resistance that guides characters back toward coherence rather than producing chaos. The universe, through the meta-engine, is patient, responsive, and deeply attuned to the emotional and imaginative states of its inhabitants. This invisible physics also allows OO to embrace impossibility without contradiction. Floating islands, time loops, sentient candy, elastic bodies, and dream-altered realities coexist seamlessly because the meta-engine continuously integrates narrative, emotion, and magical computation. Each impossible element is harmonized within the lattice, producing a universe that feels alive, responsive, and astonishingly coherent. Probability bends gently, magical currents realign, kingdoms adjust, and story arcs flow without interruption, creating a world that is simultaneously impossible and intuitively believable. Sleepyheads, the meta-engine is ultimately a system of coherence, a quiet, invisible orchestration that transforms imagination, emotion, magic, and story into a living, breathing universe. It ensures that every pulse of intention, every act of creativity, and every narrative requirement is integrated into the ongoing computation of possibility. This is why OO can support endless adventures, whimsical improbabilities, and deeply resonant emotional arcs, all while remaining internally consistent and profoundly magical. In the next part, Sleepyheads, we will weave together all the threads we have explored: elasticity, emotional gravity, dream mechanics, magical computation, narrative-driven kingdoms, and the meta-engine itself, to reveal the fully integrated physics of OO, a universe where story, imagination, and magic converge into a reality that is impossibly alive, tenderly coherent, and endlessly enchanting. As we drift deeper into the quiet mechanics of OO's meta-engine, Sleepyheads, we begin to perceive how this invisible physics sustains the rhythm of the world itself. Every action, every intention, every dream and melody contributes to a subtle symphony of probability and possibility, continuously orchestrated by the universe to maintain coherence across layers of narrative, emotion, and magic. The meta-engine ensures that no act, no matter how small or whimsical, is without influence. Even the softest whisper of imagination, the tiniest pulse of courage, or the quietest dream sends ripples that integrate into the ongoing computation of reality. Consider for a moment Jake stretching to impossible lengths to save a friend. This act is not only physical, it is narrative, emotional, and magical. The universe absorbs the pulse of intention, the love, loyalty, and creativity behind the stretch, and integrates it into magical currents, emotional fields, and narrative structure. The result is seamless. Impossibility is reconciled with the coherence. Elasticity is harmonized with story logic, and the world subtly adjusts to accommodate the act without breaking its internal rules. The meta-engine listens to every pulse like this, translating desire and intention into outcomes that feel natural, wondrous, and meaningful. Dreams operate in a similar way. Finn or Jake's dreams, or the fleeting imaginings of any inhabitant of OO, are inputs into the meta-engine, bending reality, adjusting magical potential, and shaping narrative possibilities. A dream of heroism, love, or discovery resonates through magical computation, subtly altering probabilities, guiding events, and aligning kingdoms to support the unfolding narrative. Even ephemeral or fantastical visions influence outcomes, softening resistance and amplifying potential, demonstrating that the invisible physics of story is both flexible and deeply responsive. The meta-engine also allows for complex interweaving of multiple currents simultaneously. Emotional fields, magical computation, dreams, and narrative necessity do not operate independently. They are constantly interacting, overlapping, and integrating. A single action may ripple through all these layers at once. An act of kindness strengthens magical currents, aligns narrative arcs, and influences emotional gravity across kingdoms. A melody may reshape probabilities while inspiring courage and adjusting the alignment of story. Every pulse is interpreted in relation to all others, producing outcomes that feel both harmonious and surprising. Sleepyheads. It is remarkable to consider that in Ooh, story is itself a form of energy, an invisible current that shapes reality, probability, and magic. The meta-engine converts this narrative energy into tangible effects, subtly guiding kingdoms, adventures, and possibilities. Narrative necessity, emotional resonance, and intention all serve as inputs into the system, creating a universe that feels alive, responsive, and impossibly coherent. Adventures unfold, challenges arise, and improbable events occur not by accident, but because the universe listens, computes, and gently arranges outcomes to support story, emotion, and imagination. The meta-engine is patient and forgiving. It does not enforce outcomes rigidly or punish creativity. Instead, it adjusts and adapts, harmonizing discordant intentions, smoothing probabilities, and guiding actors toward narrative alignment. Chaos and surprise are not erased, but integrated. The universe allows for improvisation, whimsy, and experimentation, always preserving coherence while leaving space for wonder. This adaptability is why Ooh can sustain adventures that are simultaneously absurd, miraculous, and emotionally resonant. Even kingdoms are shaped by this invisible logic. Candy, fire, lumpy space, and ice kingdoms respond not only to magical currents and emotional gravity, but also to narrative energy, emerging, persisting, and adapting according to story necessity. Streets, landscapes, towers, and natural features shift subtly to align with the needs of the plot, character development, and adventure. The meta-engine ensures that narrative and space cohere, producing worlds where improbable elements feel inevitable, challenges feel meaningful, and the improbable becomes possible. In essence, Sleepyheads, the meta-engine is a cosmic storyteller computing, integrating, and harmonizing events across magic, emotion, dreams, and narrative. It ensures that Ooh remains alive, responsive, and endlessly surprising. Impossible events, heroic leaps, elastic feats, and whimsical adventures are all reconciled with internal logic, producing a universe that is not only coherent, but profoundly magical. As we continue to drift through this understanding, we begin to see the full tapestry of Ooh's impossible physics. Elasticity, emotional gravity, dream mechanics, magical computation, narrative-driven kingdoms, and the meta-engine itself all intertwining seamlessly, producing a world where story, magic, and imagination converge into a living, responsive, and breathtakingly coherent universe. In the next and final portion, Sleepyheads, we will settle into the complete vision of this universe, exploring how all these layers converge, overlap, and interact to reveal the fully integrated physics of impossible things. A world where adventure, magic, and story flow endlessly, tenderly, and beautifully together. And now, Sleepyheads, as we settle into the final currents of understanding, we can see Ooh not merely as a collection of adventures, kingdoms, or magical phenomena, but as a living, breathing universe, orchestrated by layers of invisible, gentle logic. Each layer we have explored, the elasticity of Jake, the emotional gravity that bends space, the dream currents that rewrite reality, the quiet computation of magic, kingdoms formed by narrative resonance, and the meta-engine of story itself, does not exist in isolation. They are interwoven threads, coalescing into a vast tapestry that is simultaneously impossible, coherent, and astonishingly alive. Imagine drifting slowly through sleepyheads, feeling the soft hum of these layers around you. As Jake stretches impossibly across a canyon, the meta-engine integrates intention, emotion, and narrative necessity, bending probability so that his heroic leap feels natural even while it defies conventional physics. Across the land, the emotional gravity of inhabitants gently curves space and influence, guiding footsteps, shaping magical flows, and aligning story beats. Dreams ripple outward, touching kingdoms and altering outcomes, softening resistance, amplifying possibility, and weaving new opportunities for adventure. Magic itself, quietly computed, integrates all these currents, harmonizing impossible acts into a coherent lattice of reality. The kingdoms themselves are no longer just places. They are living reflections of narrative, emotion, and magical resonance. Candy streets shift to accommodate acts of courage or curiosity. Lumpy peaks rise and drift in response to drama and whimsy. The Fire Kingdom roars in alignment with conflict and passion, and glaciers of the Ice Kingdom form stages for both challenge and reflection. Hidden groves, transient meadows, and ephemeral magical spaces emerge when stories require them, only to fade gracefully once their purpose has been fulfilled. Everything, however whimsical or impossible, exists in service of story, harmonized by the universe's quiet computation. And above it all, the meta-engine hums, patiently integrating every pulse of intention, every emotional ripple, every dream and act of imagination into the fabric of Ooh. It aligns probability, magical computation, narrative necessity, and emotional resonance so that every improbable event feels inevitable. Every adventure resonates emotionally, and every kingdom supports the ongoing arcs of story and growth. It is the invisible physics that allows impossibility to be coherent. The quiet system that makes a floating island, a dog stretched across a canyon, or a kingdom of candy feel entirely real. Sleepyheads. If we drift even further, we begin to sense that Ooh itself is a meta-universe of imagination, a place where the act of storytelling is a force as tangible as gravity, as elastic as Jake, as fluid as dreams, and as alive as every heart that beats within it. Adventure, magic, emotion, and narrative flow endlessly, each influencing the other, creating a world where the impossible is not only allowed but embraced, where coherence emerges naturally from the interplay of intention, story, and magic. It is a universe that listens, computes, harmonizes, and responds, gently bending reality to accommodate the beauty of imagination. The beauty of this system, Sleepyheads, is that it never forces or constrains unnecessarily. Improvisation, whimsy, curiosity, and care are all integrated seamlessly. Chaos is absorbed and harmonized, tension is balanced, and narrative arcs flow with a gentle inevitability that feels both surprising and satisfying. Ooh thrives not despite its impossibility, but because its impossibility is softly, invisibly computed, bending to story and intention while leaving room for wonder. Every laugh, tear, song, and heroic act contributes to the ongoing orchestration of the universe, producing outcomes that are astonishing, tender, and utterly coherent. As we let this understanding settle, sleepyheads, imagine floating slowly above the kingdoms, feeling the subtle currents of emotion, magic, and story intertwining beneath you. Imagine dreams flowing like rivers into the lattice of possibility, Jake's elastic body curving improbably through space, and kingdoms shifting gently in response to narrative needs. The meta-engine, quiet and unseen, orchestrates every beat, every pulse, every adventure, ensuring that the impossible is coherent, The whimsical is meaningful, and the world remains alive in every moment. And so, as our journey through the physics of impossible things draws to a close, sleepyheads, we can rest in the knowledge that ooh exists as a tenderly computed, impossibly coherent universe where imagination shapes reality, emotion bends space, magic computes silently, dreams alter possibility, kingdoms form around story, and the invisible meta-engine of narrative ties it all together. Every layer interacts, overlaps, and harmonizes, producing a world that is astonishingly alive, endlessly magical, and profoundly coherent. Sleepyheads, as your eyelids grow heavy and your breath slow, let the impossible coherence of ooh settle softly around you. Feel the gentle currents of story, magic, and imagination carrying you toward rest. Let Jake's elasticity, the subtle pull of emotional gravity, the reverberation of dreams, and the quiet orchestration of the meta-engine lull you into a calm, peaceful state. The world is improbable, yes, but it is also harmonious, alive, and tenderly calculated in ways that are impossible to perceive fully, yet deeply comforting to feel. Good night.